with Sam Cedar, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
It is Friday, May 8th, 2020. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps and steps and steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. Casual Friday, folks. On the program today, Alex Pareene will be joining us to look at the week that was. Then we will be talking to Gene Ross, one of the presidents from the the National Registered Nurses Union. National Nurses United. Also on the program, comedian Andrew Kindler will be joining us. He's got a new album out today. So break out your turntables, everyone. Also on the program, a decade of job growth evaporates in 60 days. As reported, unemployment nearly at 15%. And today, sponsored by the Democratic failure of oversight, no basis in law or history. Bill Barr wants the court to quash Flynn's multiple guilty pleas. Meanwhile, Americans still worried about the fast restrictions removal. CDC supposedly still working on a plan, and Europe faring much better than the United States. 3 Democratic senators proposed $2,000 per person per month, as Nancy Pelosi rallies support in the House for nobody knows what. In the Senate, Chuck Schumer naps while Republicans plot judicial appointments. And surprise, surprise, Michael Bloomberg baited and now switches. Speaking of switching, Mike Pompeo says, never mind, COVID probably didn't come from a lab. And the 2 men who killed Amrita Arbery finally charged. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. I am wearing my soft-collared shirt so that you know it is Casual Friday. I don't know what I'm going to do about expanding my wardrobe a little bit, but we'll see. I'll work on that. And also maybe get a haircut. It's starting to get warm, and the beard is starting to bother me, and the hair is starting to bother me, and I'm not sure what to do about it, frankly. But I may have a solution a little bit later from our sponsor for today. Meanwhile, let's take a look at it. You'll recall, and this is driving me nuts. You'll recall that there's been multitude of instances where the Democrats should have held Bill Barr to account. During in the run-up to impeachment, they had said, we're going to talk to Bill Barr, and then they just basically blew it off. There has been such radical, it's really no other way to put this, radical neglect, wanton neglect by Nancy Pelosi in terms of allowing for oversight. Broadly speaking of the Trump administration, but most specifically about Bill Barr's office, people were calling for him to be brought in front of the House during in the wake of what he did with the Stone prosecution. And what he's doing here is completely unprecedented. You have someone who pled guilty to perjury on multiple occasions. Now, the judge in this case does not have to accept the DOJ saying, we're going to stop our prosecution after all this, because they're at sentencing. He could just say, you know what, not accepting that. Sorry. And it's quite possible he won't. If he sat down with any of the judges who have looked at any parts of this case, you'll recall one of the judges involved in this said, like, well, I'm surprised you're not being charged for treason. So they're seeing this. The question is, like, how much political pressure will these judges feel when the entire administration, the Trump administration, is now saying that, like, Flynn is like Nelson Mandela? I'm not kidding. Here is Barr. And we should say, remember, what was it? 3 or 4 prosecutors quit the DOJ case against Stone when Barr did this. One, I think, quit the entire DOJ. One of the prosecutors working on this case against Flynn quit on news that this was going to happen. These were all resignations and protests. Let's play this clip here from, this is Bill Barr explaining it, what he's doing on CBS. Oh, and make sure that let's do this in like a 4-frame or something like that, so CBS doesn't ding us. Go ahead.
Exclusive interview this afternoon inside the Department of Justice. The Attorney General said he was obligated to drop the charges against the president's former national security advisor.
Our duty, we think, is to dismiss the case.
It's a stunning turn of events for Flynn, who in December 2017 pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his discussions with the Russian ambassador after the presidential election. Flynn was ultimately fired by the president about 3 weeks into the job, having also lied to the vice president about his contacts with the Russians.
Flynn lied, and it's like they ruined his life. It's very unfair.
But the department's filing says the FBI's interview with Flynn was unjustified and done without any legitimate basis.
A crime cannot be established here. They did not have a basis for a counterintelligence investigation against Flynn at that stage.
Does the fact remain that he lied?
Well, people sometimes plead to things that turn out not to be crimes.
What should Americans take away from your actions in the Flynn case today?
I want to make sure that we restore confidence in the system. There's only one standard of justice.
President Trump, who has long claimed that Flynn was railroaded, called him a hero.
He was an innocent man.
Are you doing the president's bidding?
No, I'm doing the law's bidding.
You know you're going to take a lot of incoming, as they say in the military, for this decision.
I'm prepared for that. But I also think it's sad that nowadays these partisan feelings are so strong that people have lost any sense of justice.
Flynn welcomed the news with a tweet of his grandson. And former FBI Director Jim Comey, who started the investigation into the president, voiced his displeasure on Twitter, saying the department had lost its way.
When history looks back on this decision, how do you think it will be written?
Well, history's written by the winners, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
Pause it. End it. I mean, the idea that this history, just the concept of history being written by the winners is what you say when you are invading another country. Right? I mean, this is just really basically what you say when you're saying, and the law is specific, like if there is one institution in society that is supposed to counteract the idea that might makes right, it is the law. And yet his justification as how people will view this who are not invested in the partisan fight is, well, the fact that we have the power will dictate how people perceive this. It's not the law, which is specifically an institution to deal with the question of, does might make right? I mean, this is unbelievable. And this is what is so frustrating about this, because they're going to be bad actors who exist all the time throughout history in every place and everywhere. But the point is that if there is an opposition party, let's say, they should be doing something. Here is Nancy Pelosi's response. Attorney General Barr's politicization of justice knows no bounds. Why does it know no bounds? What could possibly be the bounds? Like maybe the House could impeach him. That's a bound. That's one way to impose a bound. The reason why Bill Barr's politicization of justice knows no bounds is because she is refusing to erect those bounds. It's up to her. There is nobody else who is in a position to bind him to justice. It's just, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's really incredibly frustrating. And we'll talk more about this with Alex Pareene in a moment. Before we do, want to remind you, the Majority Report is made possible today by Skillshare. And the first 500 people who go to skl.sh/Majority Report 8, and we'll put this in the YouTube links and the podcast links, right, guys, are going to get a free premium membership to Skillshare for 2 entire months. As you know, Skillshare, it's an online learning community, offers thousands of classes on literally any topic you can imagine. All the classes are taught by experts in their field. They have classes on drawing. They have classes on painting. They have classes, like I say, on learning the ukulele. They have multiple classes on ukulele, like kids' ukulele songs. I'm sort of stuck in the kids' ukulele song, sadly, but that's the case. I'm not very good at music, but there's video editing, web design. I've taken classes on how to take good photos with my iPhone. It works. I'm better. Almost all the classes are an hour long. Every class is split up into bite-sized lessons. It's easy to fit Skillshare into your week. It's easy to resume if you've been interrupted by your kids. Happens, believe me. It's been great. Miles, doing the bread breaking classes and getting into some of the, what do you call them? Cooking classes. Everybody can benefit from brushing up on skills that they already have. Maybe you want to enhance the skills you have. Oh, actually, this may be some carpentry stuff I can look at. Hadn't even occurred to me. A membership to Skillshare is less than $10 a month and gives you access to their entire library classes. But the first 500 people who go to skl.sh/Majority Report 8 are going to get a free membership for a whole 2 months. It's a free membership for 2 whole months. Check it out. Like I say, links are below here. Do we have Pareene? No?
I believe we do, yes.
Okay.
I'll admit, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, making his way into the Zoom holding area. Who's that? Oh, there he is.
I'll rename him.
Alex, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I think it had my son's name on the meeting ID there because we had used this to call into preschool.
Yes. There you go. How is that going for him? Preschool. How does he like to be ID'd? Your son.
How does he his
son of the of a writer at large for the New Republic? Is
that right? The son of New Republic staff writer Alex Pareene, yeah,
and also host of
Politics of Everything.
Politics of Everything.
Yeah, the New Republic's recently launched podcast.
So Alex, it's been a month. Last we spoke, it had probably been about a month in lockdown. Now it's month 2. Everybody's looking a little shaggier. Where just give me and then I want to go into I don't know. I'm trying to just like there's this sort of quality of like standing in, let's say, I don't know, like for some reason in my mind, I picture like a, like a fully grown cornfield, and everything has wilted. Like there doesn't seem to be anything that is functioning the way it should be at this point.
Yeah.
And it runs from the malign to the sort of nearly malign, it seems to me, in terms of like what's happening around us. But give me your let's start at 20,000 feet, and then we will get closer into the ugly details.
I feel like, like you said, it's been a month since last time we talked. And if you had told month ago me that basically we would be here a month later with the situation largely unchanged, I would have, I don't know, I would have like walked into the sea. Like this whole thing, the further we get from the start of the pandemic, the like less hopeful I am that steps will be taken to actually fix what's going on. Like it seemed like at the very, very beginning, when it was mainly contained in New York, or it was mainly in New York and Washington, and Washington was containing it, and you could say to yourself, well, all right, we get a robust testing program, we start doing what some of the other countries that have succeeded at this are doing, and it'll be a rough few months, but then we'll be on the other side of it. And we just haven't done it. You read now, New York is announcing they're hiring a couple thousand people to do testing, to do tracking and tracing. And it's like, that should have been in March. It really just should have been in March. I don't know why, but it's like we are getting around now only in certain places to doing the things we knew we had to do at the start of this. And I can explain why at the federal level, sort of years of disinvestment and the intentional destruction of the state allowed this to happen. But I can't explain why it's happening at every level.
It's stunning. And it just sort of feels like almost like we're taking a mulligan, and we're literally going to do it again, except for nothing has changed. Like I'm going up, I hit the ball into the woods, and I've gotten the ball, and that's the price of my mulligan. I went and grabbed it, and I'm going to come back and put it down. That's the way that we play. I don't get to pull a ball out of my bag. I turn back to you as you're watching me tee off, and I go, and this time I'm going to do the exact same swing.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're just sitting there waiting me to hit it back into the frickin' woods again.
Right.
Like the only thing, and here's the thing when I say like the failure seems to be universal, like, right. The Trump administration has basically decided, all right, we don't have the ability to do any of this. Like it's quite clear we don't have the ability to do any of this. And so the plan is going to be, we're going to see if anybody notices, like that hundreds of thousands of people die. We're going to see if anybody knows that. Maybe they won't. Maybe we can blow through this and we can get to herd immunity. Like, I don't even know statistically how we could get to herd immunity by the time, the election.
Right.
And certainly, like, let's put the economics on set, but that's what's motivating them, right? They just think that, like, if we pretend it's not there, maybe it won't be.
Right.
And people will come and shop. But the Democrats, like, can anybody articulate what the Democratic plan would be for the country to relax restrictions and sort of like live with the virus? Like, I'm not aware of anybody who has even articulated anything remotely like that.
Yeah.
They're just floundering around, hoping that if we stay on the sideline, maybe Trump, will be rational, and this is just going to be problematic because it's, as opposed to, like, they don't feel like they need to do anything. And then you have half the country is just like, hey man, I'm not worried about no flu. Yeah. I'm not a girl. I'm not going to wear a mask. Like, literally that's the attitude. And we're just, that I was just saying, like, before we got on, like, this is the worst period of it. It feels like, because, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, like, well, maybe if everybody comes out, maybe it will be fine. And in the same way, it's like, like maybe if I jump out this window, there's like a moment where you're like, wait a second, am I flying?
Yeah, right.
No, wait, no, I'm not. But I feel like we're stuck in that moment where it's like, are we flying?
Right.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that just because no one is either articulating a plan or laying the groundwork to get us through this, it does seem like, I mean, I think in New York, we'll see once we have reliable antibody testing, we'll see. But I think they inadvertently almost did the herd immunity plan, just through sheer lack of preparation. It was spreading here for a while. And I think part of the like hope and a prayer is just that like, well, and Trump's been saying this since the beginning, like maybe the warm weather will just mean it goes away. But that's just, I mean, that is really just preparing for like, that's just putting it off. It seriously is just saying like, we'll just put it off. So I don't know. I mean,
but here's the thing. We haven't gone through the herd immunity in New York.
No.
Like the reality is that the numbers, probably 15-20% max.
Right.
Everybody who's getting the people who are getting the antibodies tests tend to be people who are already sort of like out and about.
Mm-hmm.
So they are more likely to have already gotten it.
Right. And the people who've been staying home this whole time they're not out getting tested. Exactly.
And, if it's 15-20%, that means you need 5 times more. I mean, to get it. And if it's conceivable that there is some relationship between, I don't know, how easily you get it and how susceptible you are to dying from it. I mean, I guess like I have no idea, but I mean, like the concept of it seems conceivable to me. And so maybe your death rate's not the same, but for another 5, to hit another 3 or 4, 5, right? I mean, because you can't just land it at 60%.
Right.
Like you're not in charge of that.
Yeah.
You're looking at, 4 times the death that we've had, another 60, 70,000 people dying.
Yeah.
In New York.
Yeah.
And the problem is that around America, there's it's all going up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean yeah, exactly.
It's almost like it's February in the rest of the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that feeling that like, this was a big city problem or this was a New York problem is going to cause a lot of people where it is rising now to believe that they are immune because they take a car to work instead of the subway or whatever. And I don't know, like I do think like there is actually some hope that maybe weather will slow it down the spread, but like in places, and I think about a lot of sort of agricultural areas too, because the sort of places where this is going to spread the worst are places where a lot of people have to work in close contact, and then a lot of people go home to large households. And like
Right.
that describes not just big cities, that describes much of the part of the country that will be forced to work through this regardless.
The big question to me is like, how hard is it or how easy is it to catch when you're outside?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right,
then
like-
I mean, yeah.
Because we've heard stories of like meat processing plants. We've heard
Yeah.
stories about like ski resorts, right? Like in lodges and stuff like that. And it always tends to be, like choruses or funerals that
Right.
take place in a church. The question is like, have we heard like, I don't know, apple pickers or, I don't know.
I do. I remember I read, and these are all, like, again, the data is so, because I'm not an epidemiologist or a scientist. And so I'm just like, we're all just reading the same papers and research. But, in China, there was basically almost no documented cases of outdoor spread. I think Japan, it was nearly all of it was from restaurants and people indoors. And I do think like it's possible. From what my understanding, it seems like it's possible for it to spread outside, but it's just much, much easier when a lot of people are inside for a prolonged period of time.
Right. And then that becomes worrisome. I mean, that might explain on some level, like why you have Boston and New York more problematic than San Francisco and LA.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
of just weather, the implications of weather in February.
Yeah. And then, this drives me crazy too, because now it's getting to be summer, or, the weather's getting nice. It will get nicer. De Blasio already wants to start closing parks. And my fear is that, like, just because of an unwillingness to listen to public health officials, they're not going to, like, if we want to sort of survive the nice weather here, we're going to need more outside space for people to go, because there won't be inside space for people to go.
Exactly.
And, like, people are going to need to go places. Like, you can't, like, it can't just be complete quarantine indefinitely. So, ideally, and this is what I think Seattle just said, they're going to close a bunch of streets, like, to cars, so that pedestrians can use them.
Well, didn't de Blasio also make that call too?
He's opened a couple streets, not on the same level as Seattle and other European countries have done. But I think, like, if we want to talk about the recovery of this, assuming that New York is declining in cases and could get it under control, and assuming we want, like, our small businesses to open and our restaurants to open, like, they're going to need to, like, be able to put people outside, because they still won't be able to let people go inside for a while.
Yes. This is the thing too, and this is, like, sort of thematically what seems to be happening. The right is using this to restructure our society. They're doing it by making, small businesses, and the ones who got the loans first, for the most part, as far as I can tell, had, like, 300, 400, 200 employees. And that's what the small businesses were. And the big businesses, we all know, got huge bailouts, these industries, or they got free money from the Fed. So there's this structural change that the right is imposing on the country. Here's de Blasio has the opportunity to, like, hey, man, like, do 60% of the city without car traffic, maybe just trucks only or something.
Exactly.
And,
yeah.
And, when we come back from this, you leave 20% to still pedestrians. Like, you can actually make some structural differences.
And especially, if people, when the mass transit system is in serious trouble financially, and are people going to be intentionally avoiding it, like, once people have to start going back to work because they're scared of using it? And if that's the case, like, just through sheer physics, we cannot fit more cars going through bridges and tunnels in and out of Manhattan every day. Like, but we're going to see how they're going to try to make that work,
There just seems to be a tremendous amount and I still think the problem is that we have a lack of federal leadership.
Yeah.
And it's creating all sorts of, like, confusion as to what people should be doing. It's very, I mean, I would imagine, and this is not, I'm not being apologetic for them, but I would imagine it's difficult. You're the governor of New York, or the governor or the mayor of New York City, when, in the back of your mind that there's this, like, large contingency out in the country that's saying, like, this is overblown, you shouldn't be doing it, we should just all get out there and, bust through it. And then you want to impose certain restrictions that makes it that much harder politically to do so, because there's no air cover essentially coming from the federal government.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the economy, because today we got jobs numbers, or they came out today or yesterday. And
I think they came out today. Yeah.
We're at almost 15% unemployment, 14.7, lost almost 22 million jobs that have been reported through our unemployment system. I'm convinced it's much higher than that. I mean, our unemployment systems are designed in many of these states to sort of undercount and keep people off the rolls. And supposedly, like, 80% of it is temporary unemployment, but that's absurd to me.
Right.
I don't know what that means. And so the Republicans are talking about, like, we're done, more or less.
Yeah.
And everything's good. And that's because the stock market is up. It's, I think it went up yesterday. I have no idea. I mean, it's like doing fine. Pelosi is going around. My understanding is to try and like get people to support her bill, but nobody knows what's in it.
Right.
And they're getting mixed messages as about, well, how it's going to be, what kind of debate is going to be involved. I mean, we hear this stuff, Democrats in disarray. The House seems to be in disarray to me.
Yeah. I mean, the House it's not a functional legislature anymore. It's not. It's one person who is, I guess, in direct negotiations with the government and shutting out literally, as far as I can tell, shutting out literally everyone else. And literally everyone else is sitting home. Like, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, like they're not like, I'm sort of shocked that we're not actually hearing more. I mean, we heard stories that they were alarmed when they thought they might have to go back to Washington. That was when they went to the press and said, we're scared. We don't want to go back to Washington. That was the only time I've seen even any of these, like, inside sources say lawmakers are upset about blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I'm not seeing any dissent.
David Dayen has a piece where he takes the Progressive Caucus to task. There's the cat, of course, the classic cat interruption that we need to include in all our shows now.
Yeah, no, I read his piece. Yeah.
Dayen's basically arguing, right, that the reason why the Progressive Caucus has been so feckless is because all they're doing is basically, they're putting up a wish list. Nancy Pelosi pats them on the head, says, good for you. These are all great ideas. Really appreciate the effort, what you guys are doing. You guys are doing great work.
Yeah.
And then walks away, and that's it. And they don't go after Nancy Pelosi. They don't try and flex any muscle. I don't know if it's because they don't have any other alternative as to who should be Speaker of the House. I don't understand that. I don't know if it's because they don't have the ability to raise money like, Hoyer or Pelosi can, and they feel that they can. I don't know what it is, but what they're doing is not working. Yeah.
I think it's a fear of losing. I think it's a fear of picking a fight and then losing. Because when you pick a fight and lose, you reveal that you were weak the whole time. I think that's really it. Well,
here's the thing. It still appears that they're weak.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yes.
And I certainly agree with the idea of you need to have proper timing. You don't want to get into a fight that you think you're going to lose. That I can appreciate that. But to basically, not even, okay, so don't make it a fight, but let's see, here's some more criticism. Because it's like, it can't get that much worse than what we have here in terms of what we're doing. And the strategy seems to be like, Trump's just going to drive himself into a ditch and all well and good. But, Chris Coons is out there talking about austerity already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people have to remember, as far as I know, the most prominent surrogate was that clip from 10 years ago, that Chris Coons clip?
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed in Jessica Rain's social team for that misleading tweet, actually. I checked it out yesterday. That's from a clip with Judy Woodruff from TARP.
Oh, basically. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, it's really deceptive.
Wow. That wouldn't surprise me, though.
I'm sure he will. Yeah.
But
well, there's still, I think you can see there's still a belief that, in attaching time limits and caps on things like the unemployment benefit, which is one of the best things that they've done. But like the fact that there's a cap on it instead of like just saying this is indefinite until the crisis is gone, like that shows an austerian fear of being punished for going too far that I think still has a stranglehold over their thinking.
Well, look, Nancy Pelosi is a Pete Peterson acolyte.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was pushing PAYGO.
Yeah.
Like, this is a real problem. And I mean, I also think that we're at the point like where she has missed her leverage point, and I can't tell if that's on purpose or what.
Yeah.
Like if this is
right. I think it like I do. I really think it was on purpose to the extent that she knew there was like a time window when anything goes, and very purposefully limited what was put on the table during that time period.
Yes.
And like maybe she thinks now she can still cut a deal, but in that period when it was like everything's on fire, anything goes, like that was when she actually worked to make sure only certain options are on the table.
Well, I mean, and it's quite obvious that we are not in the peak leverage moment when everybody in the Senate is just basically like, we're just going about our business to approve conservative justices.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to be like you want, obviously your peak leverage is like when they're rushing to the table to get something out the door.
Yeah.
And you need to say like, that's not what we're putting out the door. And that's why like in terms of the way that this, you know, and I hear people saying like, well, if they had said no, then they would be standing in the way of this. You put out a plan from Congress.
Yes.
And you actually make that plan compete with the other plan so that the conversation isn't just that you're obstructing.
Yeah.
We do know that obstruction apparently does work. I mean, I don't know if people were around the last time.
Right.
But that you're not just obstructing, but you're actually like, they're obstructing your plan.
Right.
Is really what it should be.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was very, and I don't even know, like, I can't even really figure out exactly how or why this happened, but I found it really interesting. Again, this was when Congress was still passing its emergency bills, but like right after the last big Senate bill passed, it was like the day after every senator voted for it, Warren came out with her like, and here's what the next round must have. And I was like, why did you wait that extra day? Like you just voted on a package yesterday and you don't know when the next one will come. So that's the strategy I've seen, not just from Pelosi, but from nearly everyone.
Yeah.
The progressives, like from Sanders and Warren to Pelosi and everyone else, like they waited there. I don't know.
I think it is what you're talking about is this like intense fear of just like, we're going to wait to have this battle when the stakes are lower.
Yeah.
That's the strategy, right? It's like, these need to get out the door right now. The stakes are really, really high.
Yeah.
And I get the idea that, and this is something that you and I have lived with for now, going into its second decade. I get the idea, the dynamic that Republicans are willing to kill the hostages.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Democrats are not.
Democrats have to be the responsible ones.
But I'm sorry. In this instance, it is not such a clear case of that.
Well, no, like the Republicans, the hostage
from a political
was,
standpoint.
Right.
From a political standpoint.
Like the Republicans wanted to, and this is what, like, again, what they wanted, they got, which was to stabilize the markets. Like the actual real economy, they care much less about, but like returns to investors are doing okay. That's what they wanted. So they got what they wanted. And that was a thing to hold hostage while you saved everyone else.
Exactly.
But instead it was a bipartisan priority to sort of like get that, the markets running again. So,
and it seems to me like with the small business, like the second bite at the PPP, they came back and they're like, we got, 60 billion for hospitals and this and that. But my feeling is like, why not go in and ask for more?
Yeah.
Like they're only giving if there's that much pressure to get money out to small businesses, which I think there was.
Yeah.
Then how about doubling that part of it?
Especially because
get something that is substantial even to their constituency. Like if they're coming back and saying we need 250 for small businesses, you come back and you go, you know what? We want 500 for small businesses.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the hospitals and whatnot.
Right. And I mean, this is a time to take advantage of the fact that Republicans are deficit hypocrites. In other words, like use that to your advantage. They will spend an unlimited amount of money because they don't care about deficits. But the problem is the other side does actually care about deficits. Oh, my cat's driving me crazy.
She's a huge Pelosi fan.
Yes. No, the cat is going nuts because I'm disrespecting House leadership.
But I'm just really flummoxed by this. I mean, they're going to come out. Hopefully, it'll be a good bill. But there's really, three major things that you need in it. Obviously, more support for people. I would also, health insurance. I just, this idea of COBRA is just absurd to me.
The fact that they're taking advantage, that they're using this time to literally prop up with huge amounts of money, prop up the employer-based healthcare system is, I mean, it's astounding.
The most expensive part of it too.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And they need to have what are known as automatic stabilizers built into the bill so that these programs that are initiated are contingent not on time periods or fixed amounts of money, but are contingent upon what is happening in the economy as measured by like, unemployment or health insurance or whatever it is, some benchmarks so that it's automatic that this money goes through. And then on top of that, they need to do, I think, fair and safe voting across the country.
Yeah. And I think that the priority is get money to people, figure out how to actually hold safe and free elections. And I think they've been talking about it for the last month too, but like state and local budgets have just had a hole blown in them, every single one. And that should have been another early priority instead of something to wait to negotiate with later, because they're already imposing austerity, and the austerity that states are going to impose is going to undo any economic stimulus you try to do at the federal level.
Yep. What, how's your feeling about Joe Biden these days? Feeling better?
I mean, I think Biden? We talked about this last time, but it's like my fear of him blowing it is being replaced by my fear of him blowing it in November is being replaced by my fear of him blowing it starting in January.
Right.
That's just where I'm at now. I do not have any I do not have strong predictive feelings about what will happen in the election, but I do have some about what will happen in the event of a Joe Biden administration.
Yeah, I'm equally concerned. I mean, I have to say that I'm still also somewhat concerned about the election. It's the same type of thing of like, they're just sitting back and assuming that like Trump is just going to drive everything into a ditch. And the problem is like, he's not doing anything that's rational, at least by any standards that exist around the world. And that means that he could drive into a ditch, but it also means that he's just swerving madly and that it won't have the impact that, you might not end into a ditch. I mean, it just seems like they're just still on the, do no harm while your opponent is hurting themselves. Don't get in the way type of situation.
Yeah. And like, it's not really clear. I mean, we know this is a sort of disastrous response, but it's not really clear that it's like you can just rely on, I guess, the evening news to communicate to voters that Trump is blowing it. Like that's been the strategy for many, many years, and it doesn't work that way.
Exactly. That is exactly the case. There is no way for the voters. They're looking for cues. They don't know.
Yeah.
I've spoken to multiple top epidemiologists in the country. I've spoke to economists, and I read this stuff constantly, and I have no idea. I mean, I have a sense of what I should be thinking towards this stuff.
Yeah.
But like, here's the amazing thing about it. They knew the power of having all of these people go and endorse Joe Biden.
Yeah.
You had an electorate that was just like, who's going to win?
How do we decide? Like, we can't figure out.
We can't
tell us what to do. Please tell us which one to pick.
And so they knew that was the right thing to do in the context of the primary to push people to Biden. But then that like seems to go out the window when it comes to like oversight or when it comes to like, some type of valid criticism. I just read this thing about, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi reacting to Barr on this Flynn thing. Attorney General Barr's politicization of justice knows no bounds. That's because she's the one who's supposed to impose those bounds.
Right.
There's no other mechanism.
Yes. Yeah.
Except for like House oversight at this point. Like there's no, like the sheriff from, Washington D.C. County is not going to come in and go like, you're in trouble here, Bill Barr. I'm the guy who, puts constraints on you.
Right.
No, it's literally her.
And this is like the oversight stuff is where I feel like everyone who is still defends everything about House leadership has to say, because like we're talking about the most, sorry to use the term, but the most normie Democrats, the ones who are the most sort of partisan and loyal, the ones who like bought the t-shirt of Nancy Pelosi clapping. And like, how do you look at the failure to do any oversight of Barr, like to not even like get him to testify, to just not even try, to give up on it? How do you look at that and then just watch like the Mueller stuff just end with nothing?
It's total kabuki.
Yeah.
And it's just like saying I can't even come up with an analogy.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. They don't want to, right. It's like you said, they knew how to play politics in the terms of winning a primary election. And so they know how politics works. They know how to do it. They just decline to do it in other areas, to just sort of speak clearly and say like, this is like this is wrong. And here's how we're going to show you how it's wrong. Yeah. We're going to have a hearing about it. Like we're going to do, like, we can't go and arrest him, but we're going to do what we have the ability to do rather than just sitting here and fecklessly saying, this guy really seems to be completely out of control and is tearing down the Justice Department. Somebody should do something. Yes, exactly. Somebody should do something.
Won't please common sense and a sense of dignity take over, please?
Yeah.
Like, it's nuts. It's so enraging. So, all right, Alex, let's wrap this up. Where are we going to be in a month from now?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I mean,
you'll have eaten your cat.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Doesn't this feel like, honestly, some type of like some quasi, like some type of like Hunter S. Thompson, like fever dream?
It does. I mean, it really, it's surreal. The days bleed together. You tell me we spoke a month ago. I'm like, all right, sure. Maybe that was a month ago. Maybe that, like, I'm not sure April happened. I'm told it's May now.
Right.
What I would like to say is that in places that have broadly more functional local governments, that a month from now, perhaps New York will have sort of a robust testing and tracing operation in place, and we'll have a better ability to track outbreaks, and we'll have it under control. And then I hope that it's not like still then raging through Iowa,
right?
Like, and the sort of small agricultural communities in Texas aren't like dying by the thousands. So that's, I don't know. We'll see.
It's so weird because you just have this sort of desire to be like, maybe it will just go away.
Yeah. I mean, I spent, right after the schools closed, I just kept being like, maybe in May, like it won't be so bad. In May, they'll reopen. I'll be able to send him back to preschool. And it's like, no.
Right. And then you're like, well, camp could be possible.
Yeah, maybe there will be camp. I don't know.
And the problem is that like the function has not changed and the inputs have not changed.
No.
We're sitting there hoping that like the outputs will be different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Alex Pareene, we will see you more or less, probably, hopefully, in a month.
Yeah.
And we'll see. First thing we're going to ask is the proof of life of the cat.
Well, all right. I might have just replaced him with a stray by then. We'll see.
That's fine. I don't know which cat. To be honest with you, I didn't get a good enough look at it. So.
All right, good. All right,
Could
Sam.
be any cat. Alex Pareene, everyone, go over and subscribe right now to the Politics of Everything and to the New Republic.
Yeah, please do.
And worth your while, folks. Both the print and the digital subscription. Alex, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, man.
Of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Alex Pareene. Okay, and next up, do we? Okay, I think we have.
Yep, I'll admit her
the
now.
What's that? Yeah, sure. Let's bring in Jean Ross. She is the president of National Nurses United. They were protesting. Hold on, we got her here. They were protesting in front of the White House this week because of the lack of PPE. Jean Ross is an acute care nurse, president of the National Nurses United Union, and this is the largest union and professional organization of registered nurses in the country. Jean, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So just tell us about the protests and why.
Well, we thought it was a very good visual, number one, to do it in front of his house so he can see that all of his remarks about us having the equipment we need and everybody getting every test they need are all not true. So we had the first protest with nurses there reading off the names of our nurses, fellow nurses who have died. And then the last one was a showing of 88 pairs of shoes of nurses who have died so that you can clearly see it's getting worse and it's not getting better. And we're not going to stop until we get what we need.
And by he, you're talking about the president and his house. That's obviously the White House. So, Jean, give me a sense of like, are you going into, are you in these hospitals? Can you give us a sense of like just what's happening and where? I imagine the hotspots have been sort of like migrating across the country at different places where there are shortages, or is it just sort of like broadly speaking shortages across the board?
The hotspots will be migrating. It hits us in waves, depending on where you are and where the first person was that was infected. But as far as not having the equipment that we need, that is general. That is all over. And it can be as bad as, okay, this hospital is terribly short, but it can be in the same hospital that one unit has it and another doesn't. There's no plan. There, we have been begging for one since SARS and Ebola. We know what we need. We need the proper protective equipment, which is N95s or better. We recommend better. We need gowns. We need gloves. We need booties. The virus, follows on the soles of your shoes. We have been largely ignored, both before the pandemic and now. We solidly have the support of the public, and we appreciate that. But our job is to protect the public. We cannot do that if we cannot protect ourselves. So people need to understand that despite what the president is saying, despite what the Hospital Association and employers are saying, we do not have enough equipment, and we should not be reusing or decontaminating it.
So give me a sense of, I know there has been a tremendous amount of consolidation with hospitals. And that there's, hedge funds and every single bit of profit that can be wrung out of these hospitals is being wrung out of them. And often that means that like, hey, are we really going to store up all this equipment? Like how much of this is attributable? Like how much is we have a failure on a federal level from the national government to procure these things and distribute them in a way that is commensurate with the need? How much of it is that structurally speaking, we were particularly vulnerable to this type of thing because of the consolidation that we're seeing in the hospitals?
Well, it is the system, non-system that we have in this country. You're right. It isn't just this pandemic. We are sitting ducks. It's things nurses have been protesting about for literally decades. The lack of desire to store equipment. They call it just in time. You don't want anything sitting there because God forbid that's money. So just in time means you got to wait for your linen, you got to wait for protective equipment, you have to beg. Yes, we do need it. No, I don't need to prove to you that we need it. I'm the nurse. I'm taking care of these patients. I said we need it. We need it. We need enough staffing. Well, it costs money to hire nurses. So most employers, unless they have a union contract, can't be forced to hire more. The system that you hear Cuomo talking about, we should be sharing within an area. Certainly we should be. That is what you would be doing if you had a well-coordinated, true public healthcare system. Based on profits, what we get is what we've been protesting about for, again, years. It's the closing off of facilities that they decide are not profitable for them, making people go farther and farther out to get their health care. And here we find ourselves in a pandemic. All the things we have been warning about are coming true. And it really doesn't make us feel good to say, I told you so. We want it changed.
When we look at the disparities in terms of deaths and in terms of contraction rates too, but in terms of deaths between essentially low income areas and higher income areas, between minority communities, white communities. When we talk about closing hospitals that are not profitable, that doesn't mean that they're not getting business. It just means that they're not profitable. And they're right. I mean, so I mean, we're seeing this, we're seeing these fundamental problems with the medical industry play out in terms of these disparities too, aren't we?
We are. You can take a look at the statistics again for many, many years. You don't get the same access to healthcare depending on your color, depending on your income. It's really where your zip code is. You don't get the same treatment when you are in the hospital. You can look at disparities there. It's not just color, it's gender too. Women are discounted more readily than men. These are issues, problems we've had for some time, and it has a great deal to do with the way this non-system is set up in our country.
So, Jean, so what can, where does pressure need to be exerted, right? I mean, Donald Trump does not care what I say. I mean, like there's no scenario where he cares what I say.
Yeah.
He cares what you guys say when you protest, because nurses are, I think, support for nurses and medical personnel is not partisan, and he can lose some of his voters. But from people who are not voters of Donald Trump's, which is I think most of the people we're talking to right now, what can we do to support what you guys are trying to do? Just basically help us, essentially. What can we do to do that?
Well, we have a number of ways in which you can help. We have, if you could go to protectnurses.org and sign our petitions there. We have several. One, to get Trump to finally please invoke the Defense Production Act. He should be making equipment right now for the short term and for the long term, because this isn't over. Please fill the voicemail and emails of your legislators. Tell them you believe what nurses are saying. They are not getting the equipment they need, and they need it now. So those are the things they can do. And if you have any questions about how else you can help, you can go to our main website, nationalnursesunited.org, and there are many links to show you the petitions that we have and other ways that you could help.
Jean, lastly, let me ask you this: like, how receptive is the Democratic leadership been to like any type of proposals that you've given them as to how to push things forward?
Well, there's where more pressure could be applied. They have listened to us. They tell us they have tried to put in place the mandatory DPA for protective equipment. They told us they have put it in every package they've put forward so far. In other words, we need a temporary emergency standard from OSHA to say that if you get if you're in contact with these patients and you're a healthcare worker, you must be provided the equipment that we're talking about. Based on the precautionary principle, more is better. We
Right.
can always peel off layers.
Of course.
So those are the things that people need to tell the president to do and OSHA to do.
I mean, if I was in the Democratic leadership, what I would be doing is I'd be taking half a dozen of your nurses and I would be traveling around with them constantly and, you know, maybe rotating because obviously they got to get back to work. But I would be talking about, you know, I would just let them tell their stories of how they had a coworker who got sick or how they have to isolate themselves from their family at any given point for weeks, if not months on end because of this. Are they doing any of that?
Not that particular idea you just put out there, but they are, you know, we call them, we talk to them. And the stories that you speak of are really gruesome. It's taking such a toll. You talk about the PTSD levels of veterans after they come home from war. You haven't seen anything yet. This is, and you know, of course, about the physician who killed herself. It's hard to describe how awful this is. I know it sounds corny, but what we do is a labor of love, but it gets very difficult when you see that people who should be in charge of protecting you, your employers, your government, are not doing that.
Jean Ross, the National Nurses United Union, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate all that you are doing and all your nurses are doing. And, you know, stay safe and thank you.
Thank you for helping us get the word out.
You're welcome. All right, folks. Do we have Dr. Andy Kindler with us yet?
He's not here yet, actually.
I don't blame him. I would hope
his theme song is, though.
I hope he's smart enough to make me do some other stuff in between there. All right, let's play a little bit of sound as we wait for Andy Kindler. You're out to him, right, Brendan? We're like,
yep,
Casual Friday.
He was emailed at the same time as Pareene.
And did he ever respond?
No, neither of them did.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I got you on him too.
Okay. Andy, it's Sam, and we're waiting for you to hop on the Zoom. There you go. That's the way I text. That's the way I did. That's my boomer text. Here's Donald Trump on Fox and Friends saying that for, here's the subtext. The subtext is I was asking for my own Harry Cohn. Harry Cohn? Roy Cohn. And I was asking for my own Roy Cohn, which Roy Cohn, of course, was a horribly corrupt attorney general. Or did he? First, he worked for McCarthy, and then did he go on to be an attorney general? I think he did. Dirty trickster. And I think this is Donald Trump's way of saying, like, I found him. Apparently, it's not that hard.
If Bill Barr was your first attorney general, would there have been a Mueller probe and a Russia hoax?
No, there wouldn't be. He would have stopped it immediately. He saw it immediately. He would have seen it immediately. Jeff Sessions was a disaster. I made him. I didn't want to make him attorney general, but he was the first senator to endorse me. So I felt a little bit of an obligation. He came to see me 4 times, just begging me to be attorney general. He wasn't, to me, equipped to be attorney general, but he just wanted it. He was from a state that I love, Alabama. I won Alabama by a tremendous margin. He wanted it. And I said, all right, Jeff, he was a smaller version of that in Alabama for a little while. He was a very average guy, I find out. But if he goes in, he was so bad in his nomination, proceedings. I should have gotten rid of him there. But every time the word Russia, he knew less about Russia than I did. He knew nothing about Russia. But they got him standing on a line with Kislyak, who's the ambassador. Well, Kislyak had dinner with Nancy Pelosi and Schumer. All these guys, everybody in Washington knew Kislyak. She had dinner with him many, many times. and Jeff was just very weak and very sad. And when the name Russia was mentioned, just the word Russia, he immediately, instead of being a man and saying this is a hoax, he recused himself. And he had a deputy named Rod Rosenstein, who probably, I mean, you'll see things coming out. But I learned a lot from Richard Nixon. Don't fire people. I learned a lot. I study history. And the firing of everybody, I should have in one way, but I'm glad I didn't, because look at the way it turned out. They were all a bunch of crooks and they got caught. But I learned a lot by watching Richard Nixon. Of course, there was one difference, one big difference. Number one, he may have been guilty, and number two, he had tapes all over the place. I wasn't guilty. I did nothing wrong, and there are no tapes. But I wish there were tapes in my case.
Right.
But learn a lot from Richard Nixon, and you don't do that. The one.
I wish there were tapes, but I mean, of
Show
course,
how much non-corruption is going on around here.
Right. I wish I had taped all the times I was not corrupt. So uncorrupt that if I had tapes, it would prove it. It would be beautiful tapes. Why doesn't he just put a tape recorder in?
It's not the way to start.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, why didn't you just start recording yourself? Every day there's going to be sessions. Hey guys, everybody gather around. Let's talk about how much not corruption we're doing.
I'm beginning to think he might have said the thing about Sessions being a dumb Southerner now.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he is really crapping all over Sessions, and I'm enjoying that. But what's also really clear from this is that they do have a plan. People are saying they don't have a plan for opening up America. They do. It is, we're going to open up the floodgates, and we're going to distract people from the tens of thousands of deaths that we're going to possibly have. We're going to do that by making a whole new story about the dirty cops, everybody on the take. Flynn's back. Nelson Mandela. There it is. And I think that's what they're going to do. And then the question is it going to work? Like, they're going to literally just try and push the pandemic deeper into the newspapers and off the newscasts. You're going to be able to watch Fox News in like a week from now, and they're barely going to mention the pandemic. It's all going to be about Flynn and Jeff Sessions and all this other stuff. And if you don't believe me, you can ask Andy Kindler, who is just about to come on after we play this.
Oh, hold on. Give me 1 second here.
I ruined this whole show now. It's unbelievable.
You really did. You really.
I mean, I can't believe it. First of all, I wasn't even. Look at that.
You didn't. You don't have a mirror at home. You got to wait till you get on Zoom to fix your hair.
With a Jew like Andy Kindler,
my hair looks so.
You know you can't go wrong. His ancestors wrote the God that song. A true Obama bot, and he believes Obama never made wrong. Yeah, and Kindler.com. You made me laugh so hard, I had to write you your theme song, and
yeah.
Andy, I don't think I've ever seen. I feel like you're just you. I don't know that I've ever seen you this. I mean, you know, we're doing the Zoom thing now, but I feel like you're putting off such positive energy right now that it's almost like I'm a little concerned.
Well, because I'm how old am I again? But I released my first comedy CD today.
Wait, is this your first one?
Well, I had a
just
DVD.
The first one during the
No, I had
pandemic.
a DVD before. I had a DVD. I released a self-released DVD. When I say self-released, you do your own masturbation joke. Hello? What Happened? Are my jokes distanced?
Oh God.
Am I getting the proper amount of laugh distancing?
Wait. I mean, I'm glad we're doing this on Zoom because I wouldn't want us to both catch the giggles virus as
Catch
it
the
were.
fire, right? No, wait a second. No. Have you ever put out I put out a DVD, but I've never put out a comedy album ever. There's no video, thank God.
And is it literally an album? Like, are you?
Yes,
like, do
it's
we need
available.
A turntable?
Well, it's what I call digital vinyl. Okay.
Digital vinyl.
Right. You can't get a physical copy because I'll tell you one thing. I don't look so good, but who does these days? You will never have, I will never have a physical copy of anything again. I don't want an album. I don't want to collect. I don't want after a show.
I've noticed that about the art on your walls.
After the show.
What's going on in your room there?
That's an Andy Kindler painting over there. Can you see that?
But why don't you put up something in your living room?
Because I don't want anybody to be distracted from me.
Can't you put up a picture of yourself? Oh, there you go. All right. There's another.
That's a painting of mine over there.
Really? Are you painting now? Is that you? Did you do that?
Yeah, I did that.
I didn't realize. I had no idea. It looks nice, I think. I mean,
stop it. That's the most disgusting thing I've ever done. Look at my paintings. Also, I made this ashtray. Oh, my God. Now, what were you at? You were asking me something about social distancing or something.
I was asking you about...
looking good.
What's that? You're saying you owned nothing. Everything is digital now.
Yes. Okay. That was a great bit. Thanks for reminding me of that hilarious bit.
I want to hear that.
That's right. You actually as you know, the podcast which with Josh Elvis Weinstein, that's only available on vinyl.
Only available. That was one of the marketing choices you make that I thought was probably not the best.
Not the best. But here's the thing. I remember now, physical copies. Never again for the rest of my life will I see a sneezy, germ-filled Andy Kindler fan approaching me after the show, sneezing and expelling aerosol into the air with their Bob's Burger article. It's like a stuffed mort that has germs in it, and they want me to sign it. I'm not risking death because somebody wants me to sign their object.
I don't want to bury the lead here, but wait a second. Is there a Mort doll?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I thought I would get that going.
To know why Hugo didn't
Look
get
at
a doll.
you, unbelievable, Hugo.
Man, listen. So wait a second. Are you saying that you're never going to tour again? You're never going to go into a comedy club?
Oh no, I'll go in the comedy club, but there will be a proper distancing. There will be nobody allowed in the green room, including the other comics.
So you're just you're going to announce like germaphobe. That's going to be your hook.
Germaphobe. I'm in the age range where if you watch Murder, She Wrote, they say there's a 20% chance you're going to die. I'm old, Sam. I'm a very, very old man.
Do you set up your computer to do little sound effects when you tell a joke like that?
Ding, ding, ding. Here's how I go out to get the mail in the morning.
Oh
Sam.
my God. Oh, I wish that Afghan was a prop, but it's not.
Excuse me.
It's actually one of your Afghans.
Excuse me. Is my mail-in? Is my mail-in?
I got to tell you, Andy, that I can't imagine a piece of cloth that would offer less protection than that Afghan.
Excuse me. Can you
wear something that's a little bit more dense? Doubling that up is not going to make a difference. You could literally put a huge, like you could run like.
I can spit
like a 2-inch pipe through that.
I'm giddy. I'm giddy with the fact that I finally, before I died, put out an album. Thank you. Step aside, Rodney Dangerfield. Back off, Lenny Bruce. Take a hike. Some third person, Bob Newhart with the button down thing.
Sure. And the phone calls.
Look how good you look. You look. I know you're younger than me. But you look like 50 years younger than me.
No.
Oh, my God. Why couldn't I get the good Jewish looks? The handsome Jew. Look at you. You should see my beard when it comes in. It's like Lincoln.
It's a little bit spotty.
It looks like Jew Lincoln.
Jew Lincoln?
Jew Lincoln.
I know.
You know Lincoln?
Yeah, no, I know Lincoln.
analyzing every one of my hilarious moves. And now, if Dennis Miller was on here, would you be analyzing it, or would you be just on the floor?
I would be on the floor analyzing it. Let me ask you this. When did you start? When did you just decide to do this while you were in lockdown mode?
Oh no, this is unbelievable. I recorded this and all I could think of that was I don't have a good enough scene behind you. You want me to have a horrible library?
Bing.
Hey, it's all coming in. No, I recorded this in 2012. I have terrible OCD, Sam. And I know that I've mentioned it to you before, but you didn't care about it. And the rest of the people over there are out to get me.
What does the OCD have to do with it?
Because I have had terrible. I didn't go into therapy until 3.5 years ago, but I had terrible anxiety. I could never complete projects ever, unless it was like Evening at the Improv, where you have to go down somewhere. It took me 15 years to put out Pilot Season, and then it took me
No, I mean,
get the joke.
That's accurate. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that's your show.
Yeah, no,
hello.
I get it. It took
all
a
right,
long time.
and then it took me to take out the video. It took me another day. So I've been sitting on this for 7 years because of my OCD problems. And you know what saved me? The quarantine. I couldn't even make a physical copy of it now.
Well, now, so wait a second. So how does, I mean, I don't like, when I think of OCD, I just think of like, I got to tap a couple of times before I get the water, or, drink my glass of water or something like that. I don't know enough about it. So how did the OCD prevent you from doing it? Just like you were too nervous that it wasn't good enough, or?
You know what? I like to speak on behalf of all of OCD sufferers when I say that I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody who had more empathy for people who suffer from what we suffer. I think you said something like, what is this? You want to tap on a glass of water?
No,
is that one of those diseases?
I don't mean
oh, yeah.
I'm I don't know.
I'm sorry. Are you having a germ problem? No, here's what I'll tell you how it works, Sam. This is absolutely serious for a second, as if I've ever been funny on your show. I thought when I was 20 years old, that when I was driving down the street, that I thought, did I just hit? This is not a joke. Did I just hit someone in my car? I heard a thing. It's like a pebble. Did you hear that, honey? Well, I'm pretending I had a girlfriend back then.
Right.
Did you hear that, honey?
Oh,
honey, I didn't hear it, Andy. I better drive around the block and see if I hit somebody. And then you know what I should do? I should call the police later on the day and say, listen, I don't know if there are people the size of pebbles, but if there are pebble people, has anybody reported that a pebble person there was that kind of thing. And it was so debilitating. And in 1978, when I came out to LA, I went to a free clinic and I told the therapist there, I said, look, I think when I'm in the car, I've hit something. And she goes, hold on, I'll have to check with a supervisor. They had never heard of anything like that. It wasn't known as much back then that some people think they've mailed someone in an envelope. It's this thing where you're constantly obsessing.
Some people think that they've mailed somebody in an envelope?
Yes. They think that's an extreme version. But the version I have, I don't want to drop names. Ray Romano has the same problem I do. Hello. Everybody loves Raymond.
We have I mean, I think you know him. Also a comedian. I'm not going to say his name. But one of the things I learned, an old friend of mine, and one of the things I learned, a couple of years into knowing him, was that every time he made a charge on his credit card, he would call the credit card company to make sure they got it.
Oh,
right?
Yes. And he's a scare. Okay. I did the classic Harry Met Sally thing.
And he would freak out if he didn't have I can't get to a phone.
Right. Yes. And I was told by a friend of mine that there was a guy, he was in I didn't want to, I could have name dropped, I could have said it was Michael Sheen who told me that, but that's not the kind of person I am.
Right.
Who told me that it was Michael Sheen. No, but he said he worked in the theater with somebody who was late for the entrances in the theater. And years later, he found out, because he wrote a book, his friend wrote, that's what kept him late on entrances in Shakespeare plays, was his OCD. He couldn't leave the dressing room.
Because he was afraid he had the wrong costume on or something like that?
Yeah.
Or
what if I had something clearly that I had? Would you have more sympathy then? Why are you trying to figure it out?
I'm not What? I'm just trying to. Is part of the. Okay, now I can take you seriously. No, you're backlit now.
This is better, right?
No, you're backlit. That's not. We got the window. You know what?
You dumb idiot.
No. Oh, that's it. You got to go back. Go back the other way.
Go back. Okay.
No, the other side. Yeah. A little bit more. You get the picture. Now we're talking. Boom. Now we have like a real backdrop. You look like.
Well, a Majority Report listener gave me advice last time I was on, which I didn't take. But he said you have a whole setup over there. You got light coming in from the bottom. You got a guy from the right coming in.
I've got like half a dozen people all stationed around here holding lights for me.
Yeah, you've got Freddie DeCorvida. How much time do I have left, Freddie DeCorvida? You don't even get that
no,
reference, do you?
Hey, no, I don't. Was he one of the guys on the Tonight Show or something like that? Or he tell you how like five, like something like that?
Sam, I just realized that I could hear you better in my ear if I turned up the volume.
Oh, were you having problems hearing me before?
Yeah, because I didn't want to be hearing you from the laptop, the kids say.
So
the kids say I have an old style headset.
No, I understand. What well, I can see it.
Am I that stupid? Am I that stupid? Okay, I think I might be.
Now listen. So what else are you doing? So you've just been basically now and have you been working on the marketing of this? Like it really does appear like you're all in. And was it drugs that helped? Are you taking drugs to deal with this, or is it therapy? Or is it
no, I started taking drugs. You see, I have a combination, and this is, I mean, I wouldn't mind getting serious with you right now about mental health. But the thing is that I don't know what's wrong with me. OCD goes along with ADD. So I have actually both of them.
Right.
So the ADD is actually, in my case, related to the OCD, and the OCD is related to the ADD. Like if I'm not thinking while I'm locking the door that I'm locking the door, I'm thinking about 9 other things, and I got to remember to go lock the door. So it's like that kind of a thing.
I see. So
and they feed off of each other very in insidious ways. So I didn't get any help. So at age 50, I was put on Adderall, and it saved my life. Adderall at that time, it saved my life. I would go on the plane. I'd have all these like stomach problems, and I'd be sweating. I mean, I'm not sweating anymore, so that saved my life. And then I used to over medicate with coffee. I would drink like gallons of coffee every day. So Adderall for me was a life-changing event, and I didn't get help for years because I thought it was a phony disease. So I encourage people to get help.
So that made you like focus and remember that, like, yes, I did turn off the iron and I don't need to drive home.
No, because I hadn't gotten to therapy yet. So I was not aware that my entire life had been plagued by anxiety. I was anxious I was not anxious today, but I've had panic attacks in my life.
I mean, you did like text me 4 times when you were in the queue for the.
I know, it's ridiculous, and yet because of the ADD, I didn't think of, oh, maybe they sent something to my email, right? You communicated with me by text, so I go, he's going to continue to communicate with me by text. So I will, and first of all, you've never been on time with me.
Oh, I said we will send a Zoom link at 1:05.
Yeah, but it was in my email.
Say email. I didn't say email. You're right.
I should have known.
You're right. You know what? Next time I'll be more sensitive. I didn't know. We should have had this conversation like years ago.
Well, now you know I have a thing.
But I do like this thing. Like, did you send the link to my email? I'll look now, and I'll write. I wrote Brendan did at 1:07, and then you wrote I'm here at 1:08, and it says the meeting host will let me in, and I was like, okay. So I acknowledged it. I was in the middle of an interview, and
bothering you in the middle of an interview.
And then the best is 60 seconds later, it still won't let me join yet.
I was panicked. I was full on panic then.
That did feel like panic.
And do you know why? Because here's the thing, and if I can help anybody today, I will help you today. I almost have had a breakdown in my life just from your show. I've almost had a breakdown in my life.
How many times?
Never. But no. Not, when I say breakdown, I don't mean a breakdown, but I mean like someone will say something about like whatever it was.
You'll get into a thought spiral.
Yes, and so I'll go. Oh my God! Somebody from the Majority Report doesn't like my statement. Now I have to go back on Twitter and defend my statement, and then boop, 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 boop. I'm in a rabbit hole.
Right. There you go. I
Yeah,
get that.
and Twitter is the absolute worst. It's an obsessive compulsive trap because
Yes, I can see that.
you can check because it's fright. A lot of this is fight, flight, or freeze. And so my family has OCD going way, way, way back. My cousin used to call the police station. That's where I got that joke. She used to call the police station to see if anybody had reported someone hitting someone in the car. That's where I got the pebble part of it from the joke.
I mean, back in the day, they used to call the czar to see, like, wait a second, did we get was our shuttle overrun?
Now, don't forget, this has a historical ethnic basis. I mean, when you've been, I would imagine when your people have been, Andy, don't get comfortable. Grab the matzah and we're going. Right. Why? I just got comfortable here in Egypt, and now
I've been enjoying. I just got used to being a slave, and now you're telling me we got to go.
How am I going to get through that ocean? Oh my God, the sea is parted. That was my 10 Commandments. It was good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. You did the whole thing. Andy, we
you have to go, right?
Well, we have to go in a moment, but not before we do this. Dennis Miller has reborn his career. You know this. Again.
I apologize to him. I apologize.
But you apologized to him?
Yeah, because I didn't realize he was onto something.
Oh, hey, there you go. And I don't know if he's still going on Bill O'Reilly's show, but if I'm Bill O'Reilly, I'm a little pissed off because I'm starting to see that, like, it's almost like, I mean, for me, like, you know, you're married, if you pass away, you know, you like to think you're in heaven. You want your wife or your spouse or your whatever to move on. Right.
Right.
But I have a feeling that Bill O'Reilly is not that way. I get the sense that, like, maybe it was the story about how he had people spy on his wife when they were getting divorced. Oh, that was a long time ago, Bill O'Reilly.
But Dennis Miller wasn't involved in that, right?
No, Dennis Miller wasn't. But I'm saying Bill O'Reilly's the type of guy who I think doesn't want other people to move on. But it appears that Dennis Miller has. I think this is the second appearance that he was on Hannity. And the thing that's great about Hannity is that everything Hannity does is to make up for a deficit that he sees in his ratings in some fashion or
I never thought of it that way.
Like back in the day, he wanted Janine on the program all the time because he thought it would help him with women to be seen, you know, basically attacking. And he had a big problem with women, like his audience, like women really disliked him. They saw him as creepy. And so he would try and soften up. There's that story about originally, I can't remember what, someone just told me this, that Hannity didn't throw, he used to throw like a tennis ball or something like that in the in his studio. And Roger Ailes said, dude, you got to butch up a little bit and throw a football. And so
oh yeah, I have heard that one. Yeah.
And so you know, my favorite thing is watching Hannity try and make it seem like he has a sense of humor. And it's really hard to do with Dennis Miller, of course, because, you know, you got someone fake pretending to tell a joke and then someone fake pretending to laugh. But they're both lost.
This is TV magic.
Here we go. Here it is. Dennis Miller's last appearance on Sean Hannity's show.
iTunes, Dennis Miller, sir. How are you?
Shawnee, wait 1 second. Something across the wire right now. Sorry, this isn't really a wire. It's a tape measure, but you have a much limited process here as far as props go compared to O'Reilly. But this just coming across the wire.
Yeah, there it is now. Look, he used to come on and he used to say Billy. Remember that?
Bill, wasn't Billo or was it Billo?
No, he was calling Billy.
Billy. Hey,
and
Billy.
Now he's saying Shawnee.
Oh my God, this could be a major mistake.
It really hurts. It really hurts. I mean, it hurts me to see like how quickly.
Look at him. Look at Hannity. Hannity's like, he's in a comedy heaven now.
Right, and he's also really he's all in on the lapel pin. It's getting
well. You know, he actually shoots steroids in his head. This is a true story.
Hannity or
Hannity? Hannity. That's why he has a big blockhead like that. He shoots right into. He does. He lifts with his head in the gym, and he shoots the steroids into his head.
Bernie Sanders has announced he's running in 2024, so that's pretty exciting. He said that he wants to come back then. He's going to drop out again because he wants to get paid again, and he needs a ski chalet, and that'll give him property ownership Yahtzee. So Bernie will be back. You know, you got to beware of the socialist who does the long form taxes. Beware of the socialist doing the long form taxes.
Oh, man. All right. Can hardly wait. All right. So we've been watching Nancy Pelosi. She's holed up in her gated community.
Oh, look at that face.
That was, incidentally, that was just all that was his set piece joke.
I don't even understand. What's the bit? The bit is that
the bit is
the socialists
Sanders is going to run again and drop out again because he wants to make more money.
Oh, how does Dennis? It's unbelievable. This is what makes him such a brilliant referentian. He really sees. You know what I'm saying? He gets the game behind the game.
This is what I was going to ask you. It's like, how do you comedians come up with your ideas?
You know what? It's just
how does he come up with that idea?
Did you see that?
Going to run again to make money. It's hilarious, and it's like, where do you get these things?
All I do is watch.
And then everybody has to remember. Like, first off, there's no grown people
watching this.
Well, first of all, there's nobody watching this who plays Yahtzee.
Oh, you know what? He's been doing Yahtzee. That shows you how a man really is dead inside. When he's just he can no longer even come up with a new horrible reference.
We have another example of that with a different comedian after this, but go ahead.
The mansion, some very bizarre footage of her on a comedy show showing off a $24,000 freezer stocked with expensive gourmet ice creams. I'm dying for your thoughts.
Well, I always wonder what's wrong with her. Now I think it might be brain freeze. I think she's eaten that too much. And she never shuts up. It's just occasionally you have to hood her like a falcon so you can get some sleep at night. And Sean, do you want to know the difference between Pelosi and that freezer?
Yeah.
When Pelosi opens her mouth, the light doesn't go on. That's the difference.
Oh, boy.
Oh, what a burn.
That, first of all, it's like literally joke book material. And I'm talking like joke books that, that I've bought for my son.
But you do sophisticated, you gotta hood the falcon. See, he saw the falcon in the snowman, and that's why he got that reference. You gotta hood the falcon. Yeah, he's like Pelosi's like a falcon.
You got to muzzle her because
she's going in for the ice cream. No, she's going in for the ice cream into the freezer.
The fascinating
thing Rodriguez.
The funny thing is that Sean Hannity can pretend to have a populist critique of Pelosi that she's showing off a $24,000 refrigerator. Now, Hannity, of course, has probably the exact same refrigerator in 3 different houses.
I don't even see what is so great about that refrigerator.
But Hannity also has the ability to just like nakedly lie about anything.
Right. Exactly.
So he pretends like it's an outrage that she has that refrigerator.
Right.
Miller, he can't quite, he's not going to go there with her because he also has that refrigerator or some version of it.
Yeah, how is he going to put that down?
And
with
exactly,
his water?
He's tried to do this. Like, we got to be living in the middle of the country, as I live in Hollywood,
Santa Barbara.
in Malibu.
No, he's in Santa Barbara. He's in he's the richest. He lives in the richest area in the world, maybe.
Yeah, my guess is that he's looking at that refrigerator and going like, either A, I'm going to buy that refrigerator, or B, like, why does she have such a low grade refrigerator?
Yeah, the thing that's amazing though is when you look at that look in his face, when they catch just a little bit of Dennis Miller where he doesn't know he's being seen, he looks so evil, almost angry. evil angry, like he's going to turn on Hannity even. I hope he doesn't.
Yeah, like I'm going to get Yahtzeed for this. All right. But the Yahtzee thing reminded me of something. Did we take that tweet? Apparently, Jerry Seinfeld, your best friend.
I heard he has the gay French. You finally did the gay French king joke.
Oh my God.
And I'm operating my phone like a gay French king. Why won't they laugh at my gay French king reference?
What gay French king has a cell phone?
No, because that's his way of saying.
Pop it up. Hold on. Pop it up. Like he's like really being like he just. This is like one of those things where it's like, and where did he do this? It's his Netflix special. His Netflix special. People are pretty important, you know. Keep going. He's talking about cell phones. Next one. Go ahead.
I'm loading it.
Yeah, I mean, what is he? He's not a miracle man, right? Right, Brendan? Is that Brendan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn right, it's Brendan.
Brendan.
Please excuse me, Brendan. I'm crazy. I'm
then
drunk from power.
Somebody else says, "Really? They don't seem very important." And then
look at that.
I remember when Brendan was like, "Should I get a computer from the year 2003, running Windows XP?"
The way you throw the names on your contact list. Here comes the kicker. Like a gay French king. So here's the thing. Now, you know that is one of the things that I went off on, because he said that when he originally did this joke is when Jerry Seinfeld said comedy, I can't go out into the clubs anymore.
It's dead.
Because and it wasn't even like the bit didn't get a laugh. It just didn't get his usual laugh. So he filled in the blanks. Oh, they must be thinking I'm doing an anti-gay thing. And then, I can't do comedy now. I can't do gay French king jokes. That's it. I'm out. And that's the way he was. He wasn't going to go back to colleges. That's a guy who has to kill so bad that even with $30 billion in the bank.
But it's also what is it an example of is like just total projection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe his daughter's coming home from college and saying like, "Dad, you know, some of the stuff you do is sort of like, in addition, like I don't have the heart to tell you because you're my dad that it's hackneyed. But it's also sort of like, you know, it sort of disregards, you know, people's experience, like a specific types of people's experience. Like you're only talking to like, you know, what you just consider to be normal people, but there's probably a demographic image of what normal people look like to you. You know, she's probably saying this to him and he's like, "That's why people won't laugh at my gay king joke.
You know, did you
because
read the
my
article?
daughter thinks now that she's gone to college, she's like some type of, you know, women's studies major."
Well, now are you referring? He actually did that with his daughter. Do you know this?
There was something like
that.
Yes,
he did that. Yeah, she had come home and said something, and had said that she had questioned. He said she had questioned him about the way he was saying something, and he starts going off on. She hasn't even seen Prejudice. She hasn't even seen. If you can dig up the article, it's like literally he lives in a tower. And and he had to throw his daughter under the bus. It was
I think that's what it is. It's just you know, old guy pissed off that the world is, you know, like he's no longer centered in the universe.
Or this joke isn't that fun. It's just not that funny.
Right. He can't see that.
People are gay now, and that this is not. People no longer think of gay people as flamboyant.
Right, exactly. You know, it's not like, you know, when people there's and French kings are not at Versailles anymore with cell phones.
And he's saying gay French king because he knows he can't say, and he's operating his phone like some gay guy.
Right, exactly.
Right? He's got to say, he can't say, and this is what steams him. If he can't say that gay guys are a little fruity, if he can't do their little fruity bits anymore, I'm not going out to the clubs. No, thank you.
This is a where my free speech is being completely disregarded.
When I say to the guy in the front row, two guys sitting together, was this a computer mess up? And they get all upset now because they're from the same sex. I can't make fun now of sex between men.
Have you not noticed how many black comedians I've had in my car for my
There's not one black comedian who I haven't welcomed into my car.
You know,
I don't hate him I don't really hate him as much as I sound like I do now.
I don't
Yeah,
hate him.
but
I
I
just
got a
found
little-
that attitude. I find that attitude and that thing reminded me. And boy, he really won't let go of that gay king thing. Like, you can't come up with something else.
I can't believe it, but he really did say that then precipitated people can't go to colleges, and you can't go to colleges anymore because the kids are so sensitive, and that became a whole thing where the media was doing that. Even like we were saying, hey, what's that called? It's cancel culture. No, maybe it's they don't enjoy your act, is what it is.
Yeah,
They're
but
not
you
canceling.
have to enjoy my act, otherwise I've been canceled by the culture. Andy,
I can't have a Nazi speak at my college, right? If Richard
Exactly.
Spencer can't come to my college, and I'm not going to hear alternative thoughts now, I don't get to hear the Nazi side at my college.
Andy, let me tell you something. It is so wonderful to see you in such a good mood.
That's true. That is true.
The energy level is fantastic.
Yeah, you can tell I'm a little bit happier.
I can tell that you're happier. I suspect you haven't left your apartment there for weeks and months.
No,
and
I don't have it. I don't have it. You know why I don't have it? I won't allow anyone near enough, even my wife. I have her before we have sex. I make her take the contact test.
Like
the
gay French king.
And all of a sudden, my wife's like a gay French king.
There you go.
The guy at the gay bathhouse is acting like a gay French bathhouse guy. Okay, I'm sorry.
Andy Kindler, the name of the album.
Hence the humor.
Hence the humor. It is available
on iTunes. It's available on Spotify. You're looking like you're trying to help an old man with a Toastmasters class.
I mean,
I'm on Instagram now. I'm on Instagram. So you can get it. I think Spotify is also streaming it.
Spotify.
And Apple. Ooh. Apple. What is it? What is an Apple? I don't understand that. It's with the thing that the Beatles started, the record label the Beatles started, where they put James Taylor on Apple Records.
Andy Kindler, always great to have you.
I love you, Sam. I love you. Have a great weekend. Love you, man.
Andy Kindler, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's go. We got about an hour left. Let's go to the fun half. We'll bring Jamie on. Let's bring her on now so that we can do some plugs. Folks, just a reminder, this program relies on your support. It is the membership that keeps this program alive, particularly in eras like this that we are in and headed towards. Your support makes this show possible. If you can become a member at jointhemajority.com, please do. And if you are someone who is interested in getting the bonus material every day, but don't have the finances, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. We will hook you up. Don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. Also, AM Quickie, alive and kicking. You can sign up for it at amquickie.com. This week on a TMBS, Matt, what happened on the Michael Brooks show?
We had Teray Reed on, who I think I recommended Brendan. He come on and talk about his work. Really great stuff. Check that out, folks.
I've checked it out and I've locked it down.
There you go.
There you go. You can find the Michael Brooks Show on YouTube at youtube.com/The Michael Brooks Show. You can find it on Patreon at patreon.com/TMBS. Don't forget to check out Nomiki Kant's show, patreon.com/The Nomiki Show, or Nomiki Kant on YouTube. You can find that there. And Jamie is here with a microphone stand. What's happening, Jamie?
I'm making this microphone stand work. Blah. So what is happening? What indeed? This week on the Antifada, we had on Assad Haider, who is a extremely smart Marxist. He's such a treasure. He's an editor at Viewpoint Magazine. as well as the author of the book Mistaken Identity, Race and Class in the Age of Trump. And we talked with him about the primary election through the lens of depoliticization, which I think is a very interesting and true intervention that he has come up with to look at what's happening in the world. We talked about, so many things, the dictatorship of the proletariat, state socialism versus anarchist theory, and a little bit of punk rock. Also, the idea of mass politics versus subculture politics, and what's flawed about that framework for looking at socialist politics. So check it out, patreon.com/theantifada. Also, Andy and I moderated a panel. We did this kind of live podcast thing virtually last night for Red May Seattle. Very sad we didn't get to go to Seattle, but we had what I thought was a very interesting conversation with three very smart and interesting people on coronavirus and the future of work. And that is still up for people to watch on YouTube. So I will put a link in the description. Also, Sean and Andy, sorry, one more thing. Sean and Andy are doing a Twitch stream on some barks. I don't know. They don't really tell me what they're doing before they do it. But it's going to be great. And that's right after the majority report today. So assuming they remember that they need to start before the show ends in order to get the raid, everyone on Twitch will be brought there automatically. So twitch.tv/theantifada.
Matt.
Speaking of Twitch, twitch.tv/literary hangover is where I just finished sort of Dark Side of the Moon plus Alice in Wonderland style. I finished playing Half-Life 2 plus 1984 by George Orwell, and they both concluded at right about the same time. I'm going to be...
What do we read into that?
To which?
The fact that they concluded at the same time.
That they're, I don't know. They're very thematically linked, and I think it's just we can take it as a coincidence.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm gonna play some Kingdom Come Deliverance and listen to some Karl Kautsky, I think, on communism in Central Europe this weekend. So, or maybe tonight. So twitch.tv/literary hangover. Go subscribe there.
All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
We do one extra second here. There we are.
Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we are back. Fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get right into Donald Trump. It is Mother's Day this weekend on Sunday. I trust that everyone has hopefully got their Mother's Day stuff. Boy, you know, it just occurred to me we didn't have any ads to sell any of the normal stuff for Mother's Day, which is
Sherry's
surprising.
berries.
Sherry's berries or flowers. But I guess, people are, I don't know. But
I'm getting my mom a link to Skillshare.
Oh, that's good. That's actually, the, what was it? The,
Storyful.
Yeah. Wait, is that what it is? Storyful? No, what is the name of that? I can't remember, but that is actually really a good thing. I mean, it's, in some respects, it's more for like the kids, but I think they like it too. But be that as it may, Donald Trump, President of the United States, Mother's Day is happening in this country during the time of a pandemic. That means that particularly for folks like myself, whose moms are getting a little older in age, as it were, maybe you'll see them, but you got to keep distance. Maybe you won't be able to see them. You'll have to see them by FaceTime, whatever it is. So a country yearning for connection reaches out to its president, Donald Trump, for a message on what to do on Mother's Day. And what is his message to mothers?
President, this Sunday is Mother's Day. What are your plans? What are you going to do for Melania? And do you have a message for all the moms that are watching this morning?
Well, we'll be together. I'm going to Camp David a big meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And Camp David is this very special place that nobody ever gets to see, but it's a great work environment. And we're going to have meetings on different things. And our military has never looked better. It's never been better. We've never had the kind of equipment that we have now. And, we had planes that were 50 years old and more. Fighter jets, now we have the best in the world, the F-35 and the F-18. And, what we have is incredible. The equipment and the people we have are great, but, they have to have equipment. And we spend $1.5 trillion, really more than that. And we've totally rebuilt our military, which you have to do. I'm a very budget-conscious person, but you have to do. The nice thing is all built in the USA and plenty of equipment coming. A lot of this equipment is coming. Right. So it's very important that we have the best military, and we have our military has never been in condition.
That's such sweet sentiments. He just wants to make it absolutely clear on Mother's Day that I have an excuse for not being around Melania because she's, in addition to the fact that she's asked me not to be around her, I have an excuse of working. And I also want to make it clear, I'm being very presidential. I'm going to Camp David where presidents go. So I am, of course, a president. And wait, what was like who? What? Oh, mothers. Yes, no, my mother beat me.
Yeah. Can we make it so like you open a card and then that just message plays? Equipment's coming. We got a lot of the best equipment. 35 is amazing.
When I came into office, we didn't have any ammo, Mom. And now there's so much ammo, the best military. Does this keep going on, Brendan? Is it worth continuing?
Yeah, there's a little bit more, but it gets into more like Freudian territory.
All right, let's do this.
Gets into it.
Ooh.
I hate my mom. I'd like
it is now and soon will be.
Do you have a message for the moms that are watching?
Well, all I can say is happy Mother's Day, and I had a great mom. I loved my mom, and she loved me, which isn't hard, which is, I must tell you, probably not easy to do, but she was so good to me. She was so good. I couldn't do any wrong, which is a big problem. Maybe that's why I ended up the way I ended up. I don't know. I couldn't do any wrong in her eyes. And I had a great father, too, great guy, very different types. But my mother was a terrific woman, and Melania has been a great mother to Barron, I will tell you that. Barron is growing up really beautifully, and she's been a great mother to Barron.
Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. All the things. Yeah, all the mother things. My mom loved me. My dad is a different type of person.
Wow. I mean, even do you think on some like vague subconscious level, he wants to blame the things that people don't like about him on his mom? Because it sounds like it.
If, I probably would have been president earlier if it wasn't for my mom holding me back in some way. She wasn't so like her.
Yeah, I don't know. My sense is that Trump's most sort of traumatized by his father.
Yeah.
The way that's referenced. And then he's also traumatized by what happened to his brother with the alcoholism. And the mother might be the least traumatizing individual in his family.
And I also suspect he probably hasn't said more than 5 words to Barron in 3 years.
Right. Yeah. And
my understanding is he's growing physically. I've noticed he's taller.
He's pretty tall.
So that's
Hope
pretty
that's
good
He is
mothering.
not happy about how tall Barron's getting.
Yeah,
That's
let's
pretty
slow
good
that
mothering.
down. What are you
pretty
feeding that
good.
kid?
Yeah, it's pretty good mothering. He's growing tall. So here's one more clip of Donald Trump on Fox and Friends, where he's so aggrieved. There are at least 21 million people who've lost their jobs. The number is definitely higher, right? The states are set up in such a way that they don't record unemployment numbers. I'm not saying it's like 40 or 30 yet, but I think it's probably mid 20s. And so unemployment rate 14.7%. I actually think the real one's higher, but regardless, bottom line is there is an enormous amount of suffering that is going on in the country at this point. There's a tremendous amount of anxiety that I think people have. And both in terms of like, what does this mean that we're rushing out to just, be amongst other people in the middle of a pandemic? And also there doesn't seem to be an urgency about the devastation to the economy that one would anticipate. Largely, I don't know if most people are conscious of this because they poured so much money into the stock market. But what is Donald Trump? He's fixated on the fact that it's just not my fault. That's the important thing. That's the big takeaway. Go ahead, play this clip.
It's unacceptable. But I created, as president, we had the strongest economy in the history of the world, the strongest economy we've ever had, and we had to close it, which is artificial. We artificially closed it. Those jobs will all be back, and they'll be back very soon. And next year, we're going to have a phenomenal year. People are ready to go. We got to get it open. Safely. People are ready to go.
Mr. President, let's talk about the presidential race because we're about 6 months away.
Artificially closed, and people are ready to go. Next year's going to be great. And what magic wand is going to bring those jobs back? And why is it like there's no? I mean, he is basically saying, everybody just pay attention to the economy, and you will not notice the mass death that will be accruing. That's what the message is. It's shocking.
I mean, yeah, that's capitalism for you.
And the way he takes credit he's been taking credit for Obama's unemployment numbers, which is weird that we're as a country so fixated on that metric anyway, but he's been fixated on these unemployment numbers, which have gone on a steady downward trajectory since Obama and the recovery. And he just hates that he doesn't have that talking point anymore. He can't say like black unemployment is the lowest it's always been, because frankly, that's all he was saying from like September to January.
Well, I can say that, except for the artificial thing.
It's like, yeah, you know how you put an asterisk on certain guys for steroids? I need a COVID asterisk because these aren't
and
my
let's be
job
clear
numbers.
here. This is a policy choice. If the government wanted, now we don't have a mechanism set up for it because, in normal times, we just feel like we have no reason to provide any type of support to actual human beings. And so it might be difficult to have constructed one, but one could come up with a lot of different ways in which it could be done. Certainly we have some version of it now with this PPP for 10 weeks. But the US government could have said, we will pay employers, we'll cover 90% of the costs of your workers if you pay them to stay at home. And we'll also, for people obviously who don't have jobs, we will help out in that situation, but we will pay you 90% if you pay, and we'll pay you 90% of your rent too, for that matter. And that there's been countries that have been very successful. I mean, doing that. Germany, has been just gangbusters in terms of what they've been able to do. These are just policy decisions. And the idea was like, well, on one hand, we could pay to keep all the employees working, at home. And in some instances, that means they're not actually doing any work. We're just paying them to stay at home. Or the other hand, we can just sort of have no plans and just die our way through this thing. I think we're going to have to go with the die our way through it, because this is just, things may get out of hand if we open up this Pandora's box. That's what's going on.
And the U.S. is in a stronger position than most countries to do this type of thing because we hold the world's reserve currency. Like most countries cannot say that.
We have total control over our currency. And you're right. I mean, we are, I wouldn't say totally uniquely suited to this, but we are unique in terms of how doable this is for us, without a doubt. Let's just go to someone who's even equally as stupid, but with even less of an agenda, I think, on some level, outside of just like making some short-term cash. Here's our friend Dave Rubin. He is on book tour. He's being interviewed by a guy named Pat Brittenden, who is host of Department of Conversation, a YouTube channel. In fact, I think they've asked me to come on this program. And now that I think of it, and I think it came like a month, the show looks pretty good. I think I might do it. But be that as it may, Dave Rubin is on. He is doing his book tour. And this exchange is, I've seen Rubin talk about this before, but it really just lays out how little Dave Rubin has thought about these things, how little he has read about these things, how little he understands these things. He's given some talking points. There's a reason why guys like Dave Rubin or Tim Pool or these guys who, ostensibly play this game of like, I'm actually coming from the left or did come from the left. I mean, Rubin is, left it, but I'm not going to talk about actual policy, and I'm not going to learn about policy. I think at some level it's because they don't want to. That the easy money for them is talking about like cultural things that are written in the paper that everybody can have an opinion on. And there's no data. We don't have to talk about data or anything. Like I can come up with a well-formed opinion about something that is meaningless. But if you ask me a specific question about something that goes to the heart of my political philosophy, supposedly, well, then I'm in deep, deep water. Here is Dave Rubin. Pat Britton is from New Zealand. He's in New Zealand. He's like, and I'm not sure what kind of system they have in New Zealand, if it's more NIH type of thing, or if it's not NIH, if it's more national health, NHS program, where like literally the government owns the hospitals and pays, like is in the medical delivery business, or if it's more like, a Canadian system where they are in the medical health insurance business. But either way, Dave Rubin lays out what he would like to see and doesn't realize it exists in his own state.
Perspective, what's wrong with my healthcare in New Zealand? The US doesn't want healthcare like the rest of the Western world. Where have we got it wrong and you guys got it right?
So I will be completely honest with you. I don't know about your healthcare system enough, the New Zealand healthcare system specifically. But if you mean broadly, you mean socialized healthcare?
Let me give you a concrete example. My mum passed away 18 months ago. She passed away from motor neuron disease. She had a bed sent over from Germany, a chair sent over from, I think, Japan. The best care looked after, probably at the end spent 6 or 7 nights in hospital, along with a couple of visits on the way through. Not a cent went out of my parents' pocket, all paid for by taxes. If I get up off my chair and walk out the door and slip and break my ankle, I go to A&E, the emergency department. I get my legs set. I get the casket on. I was going to say, and I walk out. I hop out. I use my crutches.
If you walk out, then you guys are really doing it right.
No money changes hands. So yes, what you see with the NHS in the UK, I guess, without a direct comparison, but if you want to call it socialised medicine, where have we got it wrong? And America's got it so right that it rejects it outright.
Yeah, so this is the balance between sort of public and private. I actually don't have an inherent problem with trying to provide healthcare for everybody. This is actually where I would say, if you can give me some good government that is not totally bloated, that I actually think that providing healthcare, especially to the most needy, I find that to be a lofty goal, and maybe that is a good place for government to do some things. What I don't want,
pause it for 1 second. Okay. So he doesn't have an inherent problem with providing everyone with healthcare. Maybe if we had something that would provide low cost, low income people with healthcare, I'd be okay for that. Now, he may not be aware of a program called Medicaid, which I think the definition is providing low income people with health insurance and access to health. Now, a lot of his Republican friends in states have denied a lot of people that Medicaid, but so he doesn't really realize that Medicaid exists, because he could say, like, I don't have a problem with Medicaid. But of course, Medicaid and Medicare are, if not the largest, I mean, I guess you could say the largest really sort of enterprise government function on a dollar by dollar basis, that and Social Security and the military. That's it. That's all our government really is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the military. In terms of just like, if you were to look at a pie chart, if you wanted to have dessert, those are the 2 areas you would look at. But Dave doesn't seem to know this, even though he's been working in doing a political talk show for however, but go ahead.
Is just some government Medicare for all thing that we know won't be a highly functional system, and will rather be a money suck, and you'll wait forever for doctors, and good doctors won't even want to be part of it, and they'll all completely privatize in some other ways because they know that the system of balances will be completely out of whack and they won't be able to make money, and the rest of it.
Now,
I think doctors.
listen, let's talk a little bit about the system of balances.
Yeah, the system of balances.
This is like the guys, like, the book I found was definitely like, it was like a square book. I mean, it was sort of like a rectangle, and there were pages to it. And the guy has said, we have socialized medicine here. It's really effective. And he says, well, it's just going to be a money suck. And I don't know what that means, a money suck. And then he says that what will happen is doctors will then privatize, and depending on how you set it up, doctors wouldn't be able to privatize, but B, doctors are privatized now. I mean, I don't know what that means by privatize. Like, if you're talking about opting out of a Medicare for all, then what you're saying is that they'll take private insurance only and not Medicare for all. And the vast majority of doctors are already there. But he's saying it like it's a bad thing. And so what if you just said you can't do that? Like, there can be private insurance, but it can't cover anything that Medicare is covering. But he doesn't know this, even to criticize it, because he's never had every time he gets around with that circle jerk with Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and what's his face, Peter Thiel's quant guy, Weinstein. They never talk about any of these things. It's just the idea of it is sort of gross. Continue.
Of balances will be completely out of whack and they won't be able to make money and the rest of it. I think doctors deserve to make as much money as they can. So what I would prefer to have, and we were in many ways on the way to this, I would prefer to have individual private health insurance companies compete as much as possible for the best possible prices, but then you probably could do that within some framework where the government could help subsidize some of the costs. So let's say you got 10 health insurance companies across the nation. I would also, by the way, one of the issues we have here in America is whether you're allowed to take your health insurance over state borders. I would allow everybody to do that. If you have health insurance in Virginia and you move to New York, you should be able to take your health insurance with you. Again, I want to give people as much choice as possible, but I view the health insurance thing as—
Pause it for 1 second. Because I want to make sure that when he gets to the part that really shows the depth of his ignorance, that we can focus on that. But this idea of taking your health insurance across state lines, there's a reason why you don't have health insurance companies selling insurance across state lines. There have been many times, and first off, this is not a federal government issue. This is an issue with each state saying you need to be licensed in this state. But even if it were, there have been trials by different states where they have said, we will have reciprocity. You're Georgia, I'm North Carolina. Our insurance companies, we can let them go back and forth. And insurance companies don't do this because they have not found it worth their while to understand the risk pools in areas that they're not working in already. So they don't do that. They just don't want to because it's not profitable for them. It's too hard for them to do that. And if you think, again, the theory that if we had a bigger risk pool, that's not what he's talking about, but that's really what it is. It's like, if we had an insurance company that could just insure everybody, it would be cheaper because the risk pool. No, he's just talking about from the consumer side. Now you'd have to mandate that insurance companies do this because they don't find it profitable to do it and they're not doing it. But here is where we get to the coup de grace, because what he's looking for is a system where maybe you'd have like insurance companies compete against each other, and maybe the government could subsidize the purchase of this insurance.
With you. Again, I want to give people as much choice as possible, but I view the health insurance thing as something like this. You pick probably 10, a handful of private insurance companies. They all compete for services and prices, so you're hopefully keeping the costs down. Then you get the government to come in, and if they can figure out a way to subsidize some of the products or help some of the doctors or drive down those costs a little bit. And I know this is where my libertarians friends will say, hey, once you get the government involved, you've actually just inflated everything. But I think there is some way to do something that's part private and part public.
I think
I don't think
right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Rubin has just discovered the Affordable Care Act, wherein the government invites insurance companies to come into an exchange or a marketplace, compete for your insurance needs, and then subsidizes those insurance policies. Dave Rubin, in 2020, has now discovered the Affordable Care Act and apparently does not realize that it exists.
He invented the Affordable Care Act, right?
He's gone back into the future.
Like, he clearly doesn't know about it.
This is what happens when you're in the realm of pure ideas. You don't have even recent history to inform you.
Nothing. And I don't blame Britain didn't. because I don't know New Zealand's health insurance system. I don't know, but he is talking about the ACA. There are three components to the ACA. One is the patient protection part, where it's like you can't have your health insurance. You don't have lifetime caps. You don't have yearly caps. You can't have your health insurance rescinded from you. Rights that you have. 26-year-olds can be on their parents' thing. The second part is expansion of Medicaid, which he also sort of endorsed earlier, the concept of it, but doesn't mention the fact that to the extent that it hasn't been expanded, it's a function of Republican lawmakers. And then the third thing is for people who do not have employer-based health insurance, you can go into a market where they invited all these health insurance companies, and then the government will subsidize those health insurance policies. That's the Affordable Care Act. Continue.
Actually just inflated everything. But I think there is some way to do something that's part private and part public. I don't think we've perfected. Well, we certainly haven't perfected.
It seems to me, for someone with, not you personally, but people who believe in a market force and don't want to involve extra levels of bureaucracy, why would you include the insurance companies at all? If you're going to include the government, just use the government. And I'll give you an example of how.
Well, because I fundamentally believe that competition actually drives costs down and makes better service.
It's not working in America at the moment, though, is it? And let me give you a tangible example again of good government. So I had New Zealand's health minister on.
Don't even cut to me. Just keep that image. Like, I just wish that he had just stopped talking after he said, "It's not working in America now, is it?" And just see Dave's reaction to that. But continue. Remember
last year in the podcast.
Wait, something clear that Dave Rubin was all for small government and a single payer health insurance program back when he was when he was a classical liberal. And he went on David Pakman's show, and Pakman asked him the most obvious question in the world, like, what the hell does that mean? I mean, I think I had a couple exchanges with Rubin about this on Twitter. Like, the largest government you could possibly have, at least in the context of anything we would ever talk about, would be one that does single payer health insurance. Single payer health insurance, is the definition of big government, if that's really even a thing, right? Like, because big compared to what? But if you are just sitting there and just, vaguely talking about big government, how can you support single payer health insurance? There is one way you can do it. And that is if you don't know what big government is and you don't know what single payer health insurance means. If you have no clue about those things, if you are completely ignorant, then you can say those things and say it very glibly. He's glib. All right, let's just let this run out.
Competition actually drives costs down and makes better service.
It's not working in America at the moment, though, is it? And let me give you a tangible example again of good government. So I had New Zealand's health minister on last year in the podcast when I didn't have to be in my frickin' bedroom and I could be in my studio. And I said, to him, what do we say to our American friends about how our system works? And very simply, one of the things he says is we have a group here called Pharmac that doesn't buy 10 tablets of drug X. They buy 10 million. That drives the price down. That means, and then they subsidize us getting drug X, and we pay $5 at our pharmacy for any pills we need to have. So whether it's a $1,000 a month subscription to a very serious cancer treatment, or whether it's a $25 a month asthma puffer, costs us $5 at the pharmacy, and it's based on the government spending a huge amount of money, more than individual companies could, to drive the price down, and then they put another subsidy on top. That seems to be good government to me, and the way that we keep our prices down to the end consumer.
Yeah, that actually doesn't sound very far from what I just laid out there, except I added a free market element to it, which is you get a bunch of health insurance companies competing, which hopefully drives some costs down. And then, as I said, at the end of that, then you get the government to come in and figure out ways to subsidize things. So maybe in this case, it's to buy a tremendous amount of one drug so that the drug then is able to be gotten by the health insurance companies or by the primary care physicians at a much cheaper price. So I don't inherently have a problem.
Pause it for one second. So now he's talking about this sort of nebulous government agency that comes in on, like just hangs in the back and go like, maybe in this instance, we need to buy drugs. Like there's just like a guy who's just sitting there. I'm like an entrepreneurial bureaucrat and I'm just going to go like, I'm looking at this. We should just buy 10 million of those things. Where does that money come from? It's just like I'm going out to VCs. And then he's saying, and you could give it to the insurance companies. Well, what about that? Why are we giving them a VIG on something we just bought? It is so nonsensical. And this guy has made so much mileage out of like his floating around with this stuff. I mean, I know he's a joker and we, probably have spent more time than we should on him. But I mean, honestly, like what amazes me about it is that this is not the first time we've seen him do this. And it's like, why don't you get up off of that seat as you walk off that set and say, I think his husband produces the show, or just he must have a producer or something. Hey, you know what? I think I need to bone up on this. Or why don't you just call the Koch brothers and, Liberty University or whoever you sponsor and say like, is there like, can someone teach me about this?
Just get
like,
the talking points, man. They must exist. Like, just read them.
Do you think he's ever done that? Do you think he's ever
that's
boned
my
up on
point.
Yeah.
That's exactly my point. It's just like how, like he must have realized in the middle of that conversation, like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Or does he have such a blinkered self-assessment of himself that he doesn't realize like he doesn't know what he's talking about? Or is he like, I always have this level of panic that I'm in over my head. And so this was no different.
Yeah.
I think all are possibly true, but to your point, I don't think he realized he just endorsed the Liz Warren plan to produce drugs on a federal level.
Well, no, Liz Warren's was to actually produce generic drugs, not just buy them. Produce
Buy them and give them to health insurance companies.
Yeah, I don't think it was then we give them to health insurance companies to mark up.
Because they're the
wait,
best at
Jamie?
distributing. Did you lose her entirely? I thought you might have just killed her. Her
I'll try
Wi-Fi
and
might
get
have
her
went
back
out.
Here's what's amazing about this idea. I just want to put up this picture too, Brendan, of the map of COVID-19 spread from New York City. We keep hearing over and over again, the best way to do this is at state-by-state basis, because the states need to make their own determinations as to what's best for them. As if we live in a world where we could put a plastic dome over a state or a city. I guess theoretically, they did that in China. And I guess it's conceivable that we could do some version of that in the United States. But this image of the spread of COVID-19 in this country gives you an idea of just like what happened. The virus samples that we have in the Northeast, 92% of them have been linked to first cases in New York. Midwest, 78%. South, 82%. West, 78%. West Coast, 43%. It could very well be that the virus that they have on the West Coast is maybe less contagious in some fashion or is different in some way, not just in terms of its genetic structure. But the point being that you have people in New York traveling to the rest of the country. You have people in the rest of the country traveling to New York and bringing it home. The idea that we can say like, well, we don't need any type of national coordination is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. And that's a prime example of it right there. I can't wait for Trump to blame New York on this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the danger of things like this, right? It's that, no, we can't bail out New York. They spread it to everyone in the country.
It's two of them, though. Didn't we play this clip of the cops assaulting men for social distancing? Or is this a different one?
This is a different one. That one was in the East Village, and this one is in Brooklyn.
Oh, my God. There have been in New York City, my understanding is 40 arrests for failure to wear masks. 35 of them have been of African-American people. Now, I am willing to bet that the disparity, if there is one, in use of masks between black people and white people in New York City is not 7-1. And I would also be willing to bet that far less available in certain communities than others. But nevertheless, the bottom line is you start with how society is policed, period. And then you see this reflected even in the context of a pandemic. Here is apparently in Brooklyn now, more video of cops assaulting men for social distancing. And anybody want to take a guess? These two, as to who the cops are assaulting in this instance?
Get sued for that, but you know what? Get sued. I'm out for myself. Out for myself.
Yo, 6 feet apart, man. 6 feet apart.
What? You get sued for that.
We got them. We got them. Y'all see them? Y'all see them? Y'all see them? No mask on. Y'all see them?
Yo, what are y'all doing in here? There's no drugs. There's no guns. There's no nothing.
I don't want nobody touching me.
Are you crazy?
Nobody wants to touch me. Yo, you see? Yo.
Just back up, bro. Y'all see what's going on? Y'all see what's going on? Back the fuck up. Bro, back up. Just back up, all right? Just back up. I got you. I got you, bro. I'm asking you to back up.
You coming to me. You coming to me. You coming to me.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, back up.
You coming to me. I'm backed up. Yo.
I get it, bro. Yo, back up, bro. Back up. Back up, bro. Back up, bro. Back up, guys. Not now. Back up. Move out. Move out.
Doesn't want it on video. There you go.
This is going to get so much worse as it gets hotter outside.
Absolutely.
I love how these cops are not wearing masks, telling people getting up into people's faces and telling them you got to maintain social distance. I mean, it's like a comedy routine. Except for it's also brutally violent.
Yeah.
This is why I am an abolitionist. I believe this system is rotten to the core. It's not just a few bad apples. We need to start over with something that is actually designed to serve the community.
I mean, I would agree with that if there was like legitimate apparatus and attempt to discipline, to train, and to weed out officers. But like, I haven't seen, I haven't seen reforms fail. I've only seen reforms not attempted. And maybe there isn't a political
been attempted.
I mean, you got that guy. We played that clip of that guy from the East Village last week. The guy's been sued like a half a dozen times for assault.
They've paid out $150K for him alone at that precinct.
Yeah, like I think that should be automatic, like gone. And the problem is, you got the police unions are too strong. They're afraid. The politicians are afraid of them. I mean, the thing is that all the things that inhibit reform will also inhibit abolition. And I don't think that we've seen the legitimate reform in this country, to be honest with you.
I've got a book sitting on my shelf by Alex Pareene called The End of Policing. There are chapters on drugs. There are chapters on gangs. Basically, every single social problem that the police have tried to fix and only made worse. And it catalogs long lists of liberal reforms that have been attempted in all of these areas and shows how they have failed. So I understand the barriers, but there are barriers to reform. There are barriers to abolition. I would rather start with an abolitionist framework that goes at the heart of the problem.
You need something for community safety beyond that, though.
Of course
Right.
you do. Of course. And the book also goes through all of the different alternative methods of dealing with interpersonal harm that have been tried in various societies, including our own, including in modern times, including in America. And they just work so much better.
Right. Like all I'm saying is I think it's like, it's sort of like the open borders thing where it's like you have to create an image of what you're actually going for, as opposed to let's just get rid of the police, because most people who aren't checked in with left theory think that is a non-starter. We're just not going to have police tomorrow.
Because my friend who's in No New Jails, who does the Rikers table every weekend, says it's actually not that hard when you're talking to people whose lives have been directly impacted by the police state.
Look,
get them on board with abolition.
I know totally, but guess what? Those people still like there to be a number to call if something's going on. I guarantee you. So like, I'm just saying, like, it can't, that just the framing is like, I don't think a purely like, I just think from a rhetorical standpoint, it's the same thing as the open borders thing. People that aren't tuned in with left theory, that just doesn't, I just don't think it speaks to them. Because it wasn't just white people who supported the advancement of our carceral state. It was normal people in all sorts of different communities. And like, it was a huge mistake and or big fail of leadership. But I just think like that, this is why like when we talk about things like this, I just think you need to like connect it with where people can, like the languages they already speak.
Well, I'm telling you that a lot of people do connect with it. And I think something like 50%, I don't have the exact numbers, a large proportion of the population of this country has a family member who has been incarcerated. And 1/3 of those people are white. So this is an issue that affects, it's not a fringe issue. And I don't believe, like, abolition is a word that is used for a reason, right? Because it has a very long history and it's connected to the history of civil rights in this country. So I don't think it's as jargony as you're making it out to be. But I do agree, like, a huge part of being an abolitionist is having an alternative framework of restorative justice in ways people can deal with interpersonal harm in their communities, because we do need something to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think rhetorically there's a problem. I also think, I mean, I have a friend who works with family court quite a bit, and they're instituted restorative justice in those courts, and it's been problematic for women who have been abused to go and sit across from their abuser and work it out. That is an area where it breaks down.
I mean, the court system we have right now punishes the victims of abuse over and over and over again. So I have to imagine that there is a better alternative than that.
Than restorative justice?
No, there is a better alternative.
That in New York family courts, they're practicing that now, and it is a problem for. Well, I mean, this is just one example I happen to know about, just coincidentally.
Well, maybe that's because they're still doing it within the frameworks of the pre-existing justice system.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're implementing it. I don't know. I think sometimes there are people who are bad, and you don't necessarily, if you're a victim, you don't necessarily want to sit across from them. I mean, it's one thing to sort of say, like, to do restorative justice with victims if the victims are on board, but if they're not on board, or they're been terrorized by people, I'm not sure you want to put them back into that situation. I just think that, like, there is, if you're going to say abolish this staple of the way that we perceive, protection. And granted, it is for a significant portion of our society, the cops are not seen as protection. They're seen as agents of control.
And punishment.
They are.
And
yes, exactly.
In other communities, they're perceived as protection. I mean, that is the way that this is set up, and that's why it's so entrenched in many respects.
And
so,
you need to prune and destroy the functions of punishment. Like we need to, the revolution needs to happen is we need to start thinking of a justice system that is just for protection of society, and maybe rehabilitation of the criminals, but not punishment and discipline.
I mean, we're seeing a movement amongst, like, there are prosecutors like Krasner in Philadelphia, and there's others, and Chase Boudin in San Francisco. I mean, we're seeing, it's reform, I guess, but there are at least templates for how you could reform the system. Remains to be seen to what efficacy you would have. Certainly, I think, like, the idea that the Justice Department under Obama, the OLC, not the OLC, I'm sorry, the Division of Civil Liberty, the Civil Rights Division of Justice Department, was going in and basically telling cops, like, we're going to hold you accountable. And there's a reason why Jeff Sessions gets in there and says, we're done with that. Go to town. And the reason why that they reversed that dynamic and those type of reforms, those type of consent decrees, is because they must be in some way constraining. Now, that may not deal with the problem, in that respect, but if the idea is we should have reform, and then the response is no, we should abolish, we're going to be exactly where we're at.
Look, I'm not opposed to reforms in the short term. Certainly any incremental change is better than what we have now. But like I said, these reforms have failed over and over and over again. And I have a book full of statistics, a very well-researched book sitting on my shelf about it that I did an episode of the Antifada on. And I have come to the conclusion that these reforms are never going to be enough. When you have less jails, when you have less cops on the street, communities become safer and crime goes down. And we have seen this in a number of cities. And when people develop community systems of accountability, that keeps people safer. It does. And I'm not saying this can happen in a vacuum, right? We live in an incredibly messed up and unsafe and unequal world. But I think if we really want to see the kind of transformative change that we need to be working with a more radical framework, and we need to be looking at the root causes of interpersonal harm in our society.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to the phones. Calling from a 910 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. This is Pat from San Diego. I called a few weeks ago asking about Bernie Sanders and a third-party run, and you helped me understand why that's not doable. So I have another question and comment about the upcoming election.
Okay.
So when I supported Bernie, I found a lot of the people who were also Bernie supporters had a very kind of personal connection. And my Bernie story, as it were, before I deployed on my second deployment, my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer. I had to deploy knowing she would die while I was in Afghanistan.
I'm sorry.
So I went there, she died, returned home, buried her, then returned and finished the deployment. Now, Afghan papers get released. It becomes painfully obvious that, I mean, I kind of had a sneaking suspicion, but it becomes completely clear that everyone up the chain of command to President Obama, and would conceivably include Joe Biden, knew that this was an unwinnable war. They didn't know what they were doing, but they sent me there anyway.
Right.
And so when it comes to voting in this upcoming election, now I can understand the concept of voting for the lesser of two evils. I'm a weirdo. I listen to too many political podcasts. I guess I'm a bit like Thanos, like yourself. So I can understand. I can step back and see the validity of that. But I can also do that because, I mean, quite frankly, I'm in a privileged position in this society. Straight white male, was an officer in the military. I mean, Trump's election, as though it upset me and it angers me, I mean, it probably helped me. Like, you're probably doing better off under the Trump administration than before. Stocks went up, things. Obviously now with the pandemic.
A lot of people, a lot of new members. I mean, Mike Cernovich, Mike Cernovich deserves a lot of credit for that. But yes, I mean, broadly speaking, the election of Donald Trump does not, impact me on a daily life in any major material way.
On a material basis.
Right.
So for us, it's easy for us to sit back and say, well, look, you got to look at this. Take a step back. And even for me, who I came home from the war, and I mean, largely now I'm fine. Like the lasting thing, I didn't have any really lasting impacts. But I think about putting myself in the shoes of a migrant, like someone Ronald Reagan defends, and thinking about that migrant's experience where under Obama, he saw the detention facilities get built. He saw the deportations increase exponentially. He saw his family get deported. Then Trump gets elected and things get worse.
Yep.
But they were really bad before. And my question is, how do I make the argument? How do we convince someone like that, someone who is materially affected, that, look, you need to make the vote for, because the lesser of two evils argument, I couldn't say that to somebody with a straight face who's like, what do you mean? They're like, it was terrible before. And Joe Biden represents a return to that. I mean, that's his own words. So how do we help get that base of Bernie Sanders supporters and the people who actually got involved in the political process because they saw an opportunity to actually see their experience change? How do we get them excited and motivated? Because we know Donald Trump just wants to depress turnout. That's all he has to do.
Excited and motivated is difficult. I'll be honest with you. I mean, excited and motivated for the people you're talking about. I mean, I think, there's a lot of motivation. We saw it in 2018 to just vote against Trump. We had record-breaking victory and voter participation in 2018. So but you're right. You need more than what we saw in 2018. Obviously, it's an off-year election. I mean, I think when it comes specifically, you brought up immigration issues. I think Ronald Reagan would be the first to critique what happened under the Obama administration, but I think he would also argue that it's not just a question of quantity, it's almost of kind in terms of how much worse this is. And this is presumably during a time where there's some form of accountability in the form of another election coming up for this guy. Right. And so I mean, I think from the perspective and frankly, we were always going to get hit with COVID-19, with coronavirus. That was an inevitability. But if you had a functioning federal government, my guess is New York shuts down a week earlier at the least.
Right. Or we look like South Korea and suddenly we don't have a 9/11 a day. Absolutely. But I just feel like
the economic implications. And the economic implications.
But how does a privilege? I guess the overall question, or the generalized question of it is, how does a privileged person talk to and convince people who the society has destroyed and disenfranchised and just beat down for so long? How do people in positions of, because even Bernie Sanders, he's acting, we're all kind of acting. We're annoyed, we're upset by it, but at the end of the day, none of it matters to us really. So how do we talk to people who it actually does affect? Obviously maybe there is no answer to this, and
I mean, I don't know. You're able to articulate what is problematic with Donald Trump. I don't think that you're disqualified from being able to see what's happening because it's not directly impacting you. I mean, that's sort of the whole point, right? I mean, that's why we're in a society. And, in terms of justification as to why you are the one, what right do you have to make that argument? I mean, look, as a society, we are only as functioning as, those people who have the least amount of power are, it seems to me. And it's also just like a question of fairness and justice. And I think it's a question of just your basic human empathy. I also don't think it's sustainable, frankly, for us to be this way. But it's also just a question of like, basic empathy and wanting to turn things for kids. And I will say this, like, I firmly believe that one's ability, and, you could use a military example, right? Like, you take one hill at a time, and you get up to a point where you aim for a goal that's going to give you some type of strategic advantage, and then you can take much more. And
I agree with that. And Biden's the first hill. He's the beachhead, I suppose.
Exactly. And I mean, you can use it as an example. It's just like what happened. Like, I'm quite convinced that the left, in terms of policy and in terms of organization and strength, would be stronger right now if Hillary Clinton had been the nominee. I think we would have 4 more years of Clinton, without a doubt. But I think, like, when was the last time you heard anybody talk about wealth inequality in a significant manner, broadly, in broad strokes in the mainstream?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders, but it
AOC?
used to be. It used to be far more centered in our debates, because it wasn't a question. I mean, back in the last 4 years of Obama, it was more centered. And
we've seen a huge upswelling of left activity in the past 4 years, though.
I think there was a trajectory. I think you've seen it. I think you really see. I think the trajectory has been happening. I think the trajectory has been there.
From this, because Bernie Sanders I mean, like, one of the things I've been seeing is they said, oh, well, what's the fallout of the Bernie Sanders run? Well, he normalized socialism. He normalized the ability to say all these things that otherwise you would have been laughed out of town.
But why when Bernie Sanders entered the race, he thinks he is doing in 2016, he thinks he's just trying to get an issue into the forefront. And why did he almost have the ability to win? It is because what was growing under those years of, like, the expectation of what Obama would bring and what he didn't bring is really what drove people to say, oh, in this era where I have I mean, look, this happened in the 60s too, during the Great Compression. As people are, sort of like, you gain one thing, you make incremental gains, and then you start asking for more, as opposed to situations like we're in now, where it's like, it's an emergency. We need to get Donald Trump out. And so the idea of people saying, like, and I'm talking about voters now. I'm talking about our, fellow Democrats, the vast majority. Like, you have 2 types of people in this country, broadly speaking. Ones are going to vote for Republicans, ones are going to vote for Democrats. And the ones who vote for Republicans don't want any of this stuff.
And what happened in this election is the activist vote got swamped by the resistance suburban vote, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That wouldn't have happened if those people were asleep.
Yes.
I think there are many larger systemic factors that also account for the growth of the left that can't just be put down to whether a Democrat or a Republican is president.
The recession, yeah.
The 2008 recession was a huge part of it. And over time, yes, I would agree. I'm not saying it's exclusively a function of anything, but I'm just saying, where do you have more of an opportunity to flourish? Like, when
it seems like there's a portion of the left, though, that now they were energized to enter and vote for Bernie, and now we need to get them, and they're going to sit out. I mean, there's people like, I love Dropout Trap House, I listen to them, but sometimes they talk about Trump like he's not, and particularly uniquely dangerous. He is, but they kind of poo-poo that idea, and then they're like, oh, so it doesn't matter, and they take almost a nihilistic approach because Bernie's out. And it's like, well, how do we get them to realize, no?
I don't think you can. I think there are going to be people like that, but I don't think that is, to be honest with you, I think that the relevance of that can be overblown.
I think that, and I also think the cue from the campaign, Joe Biden's acting like he doesn't need the left. What's he going to lower something to the age 55 and now all of a sudden he's got the left? Like, he's acting as if he doesn't need the left to win this election, and he might not.
Right. Yeah.
If he does need the left to win this election, he should start acting like it.
Yes, so go out there and get some of those suburban moderates that you've been bragging about as part of your strategy all along. I mean, I don't think that rhetoric or shaming can really impact people's voting choices. I can see it from both sides, honestly. I'm not going to lecture to people on how to vote because I'm honestly not sure what I would do if I lived in a swing state. So I don't think I really have the standing to tell anyone else to.
Does that
I've
mean
heard,
that I know, because I know what I would do in a swing state, that I do have the standing?
maybe. I don't know.
I'll take it.
I mean, I've heard very good arguments on both sides, right? I've heard from people who've been impacted by mass incarceration, which Biden was a major part of in the 90s, so-called welfare reform, victims of sexual assault, right? Anyone who cares about it, like Biden has been on the wrong side of all of these issues, and he's played an active role in oppressing people. At the same time, there is an argument to be made that he would potentially be better than Trump on a few issues that are also important to people, right? Including maybe he wouldn't be terrorizing immigrants on the same level. Maybe he would, not sure. Maybe something like the Medicaid expansion, he'd be able to protect the courts. I mean, the courts are screwed regardless. I don't think Biden's gonna unscrew the courts. But like, we don't know, but for the sake of any potential benefit in these areas, that's why I could see the argument that people should vote for Biden. But like I said, there are good arguments on both sides, and I'm deeply agnostic about it.
I think the strong argument is that you're not electing the individual, you're electing the apparatus. And it doesn't, frankly, the individual
he's part of an apparatus, and he's done.
Yeah, the apparatuses are going to be very, very different.
Very different. And I mean, and I will say this, that, you know, I've gotten emails from people who are victims of sexual assault, and I can understand why, you know, specific people have specific reasons why they wouldn't vote. And I think that's for Biden. In fact, I got one email from someone who's like, I can't pull the lever for him, but I'm going to tell other people to. I mean, that to me seems like a very rational reaction to it. But the reality is that if you want to grow the left, right, the distance between Jamie and people and resources shrinks, even with a Joe Biden administration, because, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, they're going to hire, you know, Virgil Texas to do, you know, policy. So, but Virgil's going to know somebody who's been hired. And he
really think so?
Well, he'll know somebody who knows somebody. Like, I'm just saying, I'm just using that as an example. But I mean, certainly, you know, like the proximity to power is going to be closer. There's just no doubt about that. And the amount of resources.
And I suppose you've said, like, we won't be arguing about mercury in the water. We'll be arguing about, you know, Medicare for all, you know.
Exactly.
Because Trump so far. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Appreciate the phone call, Pat.
Well, yeah, I'll keep writing left is best. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. We'll take one more phone call and then we got to get out of here. Folks, I'm very, 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 very sorry. We didn't get to more, but you know, I don't know what we got to figure out something. I don't. Donald Trump has said that Katie is a vice president staffer who tested positive. Katie Miller is a vice president Spock's and wife of White House advisor Stephen Miller.
Celebrate.
The entire West Wing has now been directly or indirectly exposed to COVID-19. This is according to CBS reporting. I mean, look, there are a lot of people who feel it is wrong to wish ill on others. And I respect that, but I am not one of them. And I can understand why there might be people out there who think that I am so toxic to our society. They don't know my relationship with my kids. I'm not saying that would help me. It probably maybe would hurt, but they don't know who I am personally. They don't. And I understand that because that is not their. You know, like I'm out here, and to the extent that I'm a public person or narrowly public, then I can understand how people would be like, "Boy, if Sam Cedar got COVID-19 and died, it would make the world a better place." From their perspective, I am okay with that. And I say that as a preface by saying I will have no problem if that White House is they're incapable of staffing that because of COVID-19. In weeks from now, I'm gonna lay that out there. I don't want anybody else. And maybe there are specific people in there that I would say I would hope they get protected, but I don't believe in magical thinking. I don't have the ability to influence it. I'm just saying that I think in terms of the country would probably be better off if some of those people contracted it, because they tend to be more empathetic. My experience is Republicans when they go through something themselves. So
that's expecting a lot from them.
I said there's a tendency. All right, the final call of the day. That's fair enough. I may be too optimistic. Final call of the day, calling from 337 area code. In fact, I should say that you are the final call of the week.
Hello?
Yes.
It's me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So I'm calling very quickly. I would like to say that Jean-Luc Mélenchon in the 2017 election, French election, was the main reason why French progressives didn't vote in the general. And Michael got a quote out of an interview that's got to be contextualized where within a context where where he refused to endorse any candidate and he refused to give any clear guideline as to who to vote for. But more importantly, France is opening on Monday, and it's gonna be shit. Every school and colleges are getting at top 75% of the masks they need to spend the first week. I've got a specific case of a friend that take care of very, very little kids, and they didn't plan anything for the kids that got mental problems and kids in general are hard to deal with, and they are very stressed out. The director was planning on not working and has been forced by the hierarchy to work in definitive.
Okay. Well, I know I appreciate that. I appreciate the update. So let me see if I understand your point. Your point is that Macron's victory was in part a function of the failure of the left to coalesce around their second most favored candidate. Is that what you were saying?
So Jean-Luc Mélenchon, no, that's not what I'm saying. In the primary, we clearly failed to do that. I, for my part, was not watching your show at the time and had a different idea of voting and voted for the candidate that I thought was better progressive, but I kind of knew was going to lose.
So Hamon as opposed to Mélenchon.
After that, sorry?
Hamon instead of Mélenchon? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jean-Luc Mélenchon, on the contrary of Benoît Hamon, refused to point his own supporters to vote for Macron. In the end, it has gone well because Macron has been elected and Marine Le Pen has been
right. I understand.
Gotten out of, but he refused to endorse anything, and he's a bit problematic on some things. I would have voted for him if I would have watched your show before, but I was not in that kind of mood at the time.
I understand. Well, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you.
Well, I mean, what's going on with Macron now?
Oh, he's
like everybody said you have to vote for Macron, right, to keep down a fascist. But Macron is behaving like a fascist.
I mean, I would bet that Le Pen would be worse, but yes. But I think his point was that the window of opportunity, you know, when you move to the next, you go from the frying pan into the fire, you want to stay out of the fire as opposed to, I don't know, go into the burning molten lava. I don't know. Once you get,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's particularly relevant to an American context.
I mean, there are some parallels. I think Mélenchon is certainly less radical for France than Bernie Sanders is for the US. So the parallel breaks down a little bit there. But like, I think we're thinking a little bit too small again. Like the number of people who are going to vote strategically based on what we say or based on what they read, like it's very tiny. Elections are decided by larger social forces and institutions that us as individuals do not have that much control over. And it is a long-term project, and it's not easy. It's not low-hanging fruit, but rather than trying to figure...
I agree, unless it's Florida in 2000. And I mean, look, the idea of on a given day in February, we had as many people, just watching the YouTube show as were dispersed in those 3 states. That, and now obviously it's not 1-to-1, but like, it's not like we're the only people saying these things, right? I mean, it's all butterfly wings. You're just hoping that there's enough butterflies that are aligned that your wings can blow over the thing.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're big enough to win Nevada, not big enough to win a primary.
We'll see. Like, if fascism is a real force, right? And the Democrats are always hyperventilating about how Trump is a fascist. If fascism is a real force and it is rising, we cannot get rid of it just by voting.
It's true. All right, folks. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know